lounging in the car when the heat is on, nor lying at the beach at the break of dawn. Welcome to the UFC 314 preview show here on INC Live. My name is Karl Bainbridge and I am joined by the man on the right hand side of my screen. And based on the way he's dressed right now, he is the Scott Hall to my Kevin Nash. It's Joe Neal. Joe, thank you very much for joining us.
You said to dress up for Miami, so I came dressed as the most Miami person I know, Razor Ramon.
I should have worn like a do-rag or something to try and fit the Kevin Nash stuff. I mean, I've got the Dolphins jersey, which it is actually...
What's that? You're taller than me.
I am a little bit, yes, just about. I think I'm about 6 foot. That being said, though, being a Bills fan and wearing a Dolphins jersey, it's a bit sacrilege.
It's gonna burn. Yeah, it's gonna burn your skin.
Well, it is sunny for the first time in like 9 months outside, so that's inevitable anyway.
Oh, did we switch weather? It's raining sideways outside currently.
Honestly, Joe, it has been so long since we've done one of these preview shows. Obviously, the weather's changed. I think it was like January the last time we did one together. And I realised this, it's been so long since we've done one that in that time, John Cena's turned heel and Newcastle United have won a trophy. That's how long it's been.
John Cena turning heel is crazy. But it's funny, one of the big memes I've seen people do is, damn, we really got blank before GTA 6. Damn, we really got Joe and Karl reuniting on this preview show before GTA 6. So, which is, hey, funny enough, you know what? It fits because that game takes place in Vice City, which is
it
based
certainly
on Miami.
is, yes. And I have to say as well, Joe, Miami has kind of become one of the regular stops of the UFC calendar over the past couple of years. I think they've got to deal with the owners of that building, so it's like a yearly thing, sort of upfront fee. There's a lot of money when it comes to this sport. I will say though, of the regular stops that the UFC go to, I think the Miami cards more often than not seem to deliver.
I mean, last year was O'Malley Vera 2, which had the banger of match between Poirier and BSD. It also had JDM Gilbert.
Really good fight.
Michael Pick. Yeah, really good comeback I thought too, because I had JDM down. Piotr Young Song Yadong was very good. MVP Kevin Holland was blast. Someone gave Kevin Holland a round in that fight, or three people gave Kevin Holland a round.
And it also has Jilton Almeida getting finished as well, which is always a good thing.
Oh, yeah, that's right. My girl Macy Barber, who's only fun to look at. Hey. I'm just going to call it like it is. It's been a while.
Doesn't Alexa Grasso know about this?
She can know about it. Just because I'm on a diet doesn't mean I can't look at the menu. And I can't take credit for that one. My friend Blaze said that once. But yeah, Kyler Phillips and Pedro Munoz. I remember that one. Yeah, last year was really good. And then we had Robelis de Spagna. Everyone like, oh, this is a heavyweight to watch out for. But yeah, they're in the Kaseya Center, which is funny because at the current job I work at, I use that program a ton. Actually, which is fun.
And I will say as well, Joe, that it's a good thing that we do have what is on paper a very good card, because I don't know about you, I think this year for the UFC so far has been pretty weak. I don't think the pay-per-views on the whole have delivered. The fight nights seem to have got more and more watered down. There seems to be a real sort of ill feeling around the product from the fan base. Not just the casuals, but the hardcores as well. It's very sort of WWF 1994, 1995.
Yeah, my word, it's been a bad year. It's been a hard being a fight fan. Like, honestly, like, we can just call it like it is. Our job is really hard because next month, everyone's like going, you guys get to watch fights all year. Like, how is that a bad thing? It's like, dude, next month, like, we got to watch Belal Muhammad fight. I don't know about you. That's pretty hard. I used to feel bad for when people used to be like, it's like, yeah, I got stuck. Like like your movie reviewers get assigned gigs, stuff like that. If you like work with like a site that just does like reviews for stuff, and people would be like, oh, sweet, I get to go see like Oppenheimer, and it's like some guys like, oh, I get to go see, um, you know, the new Superman that looks really good coming out, and then some guys like, yeah, I have to go see the Minecraft movie. Cool, that's us.
I would comment, but my nephews are going to see that and they're really excited for it.
My brother went and saw it last night with some friends for free with his work connection, and they went to this theater we always go to where it has an open bar and they'll bring it to you. He said him and his friends had to get drunk just to put up with that movie. They saw it. I was like, this will be kind of funny how bad it is. And he goes, oh my God. The first thing I saw from him when I finally got my phone back for hanging out with some friends last night and was, wow, I'm so happy I can finally say the worst movie I've seen in theaters wasn't with dad. And I went, oh man.
I think the worst one
Apparently
I
it was
ever
pretty
saw was
rough.
Iron Man 2.
That's not a bad movie though, I don't think. Personally, I don't hate it. I think my worst one's also a superhero movie, but it's also my most hated movie of all time, and it's Batman versus
Oh, that was
Superman.
so bad.
Uh, that movie, I can talk about it one day. Like, I won't go too off into a tangent. That's my most hated movie of all time. Zack Snyder. Okay, so we're MMA fans. This does fit. Um, so there's two. You know, like remember Ben Askren and Jorge
Yep.
Masvidal, like rivalry. Masvidal, also Miami, and I look like him with the beard currently. But Masvidal said, "I still don't like that dude. You know, if I see him at Whole Foods, I'm slapping him up." And like that's pretty funny saying that after you get the fastest KO ever on a guy. Um, you know, but I I kind of relate to that because if I see Zack Snyder or Todd Howard from Bethesda at like Crest or Whole Foods or any other grocery store, I'm still slapping them up. They're my Ben Askren to my Masvidal.
I have to say this is a very negative tone to open our first show for like 10,000 years. And we're trying to get people excited about this card. We want this to be a good one for once. It
Well, this card's
is.
actually awesome. Well, yeah, we have to get the negative out of the way early because we did get Joe and Karl reunion before GTA 6. Um,
So on that cheery note then, Joe, we will focus on UFC 314 and we're going to focus in particular on the prelims first and foremost. You can see those on your screen right now. Now, there was one fight which was supposed to be part of the prelims that has got moved up to the main card, obviously with Carlos Prates' fight falling through, which means that our prelim
mhm.
headliner is going to be Dan Ige, who's going to try and stay in the rankings up against Sean Woodson. And Sean Woodson, I always think, he's a really quirky guy to think of when it comes to the MMA prospect conversation because you look at his record, 13-1-1, 13-1-1. You look at the physique of the guy, he's a very strange build. Nobody's talking about him and saying, oh, future champion Sean Woodson. Is there anything about his fights that's maybe putting people off? Is it just the way he looks?
I think a looks thing because the first time I saw him fight live was it was a Colin Anglin when he like TKO'd him with like the body shots and he's like doing the dust and like pointing at him and stuff like that. He's very fun. He's got like he's mostly known for his boxing, but like his hands are very good. But he can he throws everything. He throws a good bit of everything. He could be a finisher. He doesn't quite have like the explosion one punch like bombs. That's a lot of like punches and bunches, but he attacks the body well, which I always love. Um, he also, but I have one thing I could point to, and it's probably the Luis
Mm-hmm.
Saldana fight. It's like the only thing I can think of like why people aren't super hot on him is maybe the lack of names on his list. I mean, he did knock out Terrence McKinney, which is kind of wild. And then and he beat Kyle Bochniak. Like Alex Caceres Charles Jourdain, who's really spotty. But the Luis Saldana fight has to be the reason. Like everyone kind of goes, oh, we still kind of count that as a knockout loss. So it kind of is, and it isn't. Like it should have been called, and then it just somehow kept going, and somehow Saldana. It was very reminiscent to me of Bisping in Anderson, Bisping Anderson, but this one, but Saldana was an illegal knee, whereas or Anderson was legal, like it was, but Bisping was knocked out, Sean Woodson was knocked out, then they win the next 2 rounds. Go figure.
That silver knee was the only good thing about that retro review.
Gosh,
Worst card we covered so far?
man, maybe, yeah, like. Off the top of my head, it is. It's one I always think of when I think of bad cards I've had to cover. I mean, I mean that's probably the one I think of when it comes to like the really bad cards I gotta cover.
Um, Again, we're talking about bad cards, Joe. We need to try and keep this positive.
I know this card, and this
Yes.
card's awesome. Yeah, actually, this card's actually pretty good. Which it needs it after this year, so
And
I'm
I'm
excited.
excited as well about another fight on the prelims here, which is a potential strawweight title eliminator, Yan Xiaonan taking on Verna Janjidoba. And the placement of this fight, I think, has really divided the MMA community, and there has been a lot of discussions about this in regards to some of the fights which have been booked recently and their card placements, the card placements of some of the other fights which have happened over the past few months. I think there's been a real sort of negative swing towards women's MMA, and there has been a lot of fights, don't get me wrong. A lot of the fights in the women's divisions haven't delivered so far this year. But I usually do like to lean on the side of meritocracy and importance and stakes when it comes to card placements. And I think putting what a lot of people believe could be a title eliminator, especially if Verna wins, burying it on the prelims it's kind of doing a disservice, because if we assume that Whaley does stay at strawweight, she could very well be facing the winner of this fight. And how are you supposed to get people excited for that matchup when nobody knows anything about...
You're not showcasing it.
I mean, that's not a guarantee that this fight's going to be good. I can see it being very grappling heavy. I think it's going to be that sort of 29-28. Both fighters can have a claim to winning it. It's that kind of matchup. But it's an important fight.
Yeah. That's kind of how I see this fight going, like, or that fight going exactly. But I think it is a little BS that it's on the prelims. So from an entertainment standpoint, I don't want this on the main card. But like meritocracy, you kind of need to put it on the main. You got to put it on the main card. You know, I've been loving this potential Dominic Reyes resurgence. Probably should be a prelims over underneath this.
Cause like, hey, if they done this at say like an Apex main event, like kind of like what they're doing with Barber and Owen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be perfectly fine with it.
Anything else that stands out for you in terms of the prelims? Because as you seem to be hinting before, there is a lot to talk about here.
Sumadarji is always a must watch for me. Because of his fight with Matt Schnell was like going, pro fighter pay, what's his name? Makes that Steve Erceg KO more fun, huh? When you remember Matt Schnell's what's it called? Pro, how much they're getting paid now. He's pro Dana. It makes it much sweeter. Chase Hooper, Jim Miller. I think that's kind of a weird passing of the torch potentially.
Would you say that's good? Is that good matchmaking or is that bad? Because I know why they've done it, because they're leaning into Chase Hooper being so young and Jim Miller being a veteran. But the way that Chase Hooper's been fighting recently, it could end pretty bad for Jim, I fear.
I like it and I hate it. Like I like it in terms of storyline, and I think, as I hate being this guy, but I think the UFC is pretty bad at building guys up unless they want to protect them. I think I'm pro build him up with matchups that are fascinating to them. you know. Like we're finally getting a guy who can hit, taking on Paddy in the co-main, right? But it took how long, you know? Like so think about that. Um, and so I'm very happy with the idea of Jim Miller, Chase Hooper, because Jim Miller is a vet who can counter, like stop his grappling attempts all fight, has the experience on the feet and the power to give Chase Hooper some trouble. I think that's a fun like matchup wise. But Chase Hooper's pretty hot right now. Like he's starting to build some good momentum. He's kind of turned the corner in his um, fight maturity that it could be a bad and dare I say dangerous night for Jim Miller, which is something you don't want to see a vet do. So that's where I hate it. But I will say I can't act like the sick part of me is interested. And last but not least, Darren Elkins, Juicy J. Darren Elkins, Juicy J, is. Ooh.
That's the one that stood out for me.
Yeah. Second I saw it, was like going, oh, Darren Elkins is fighting. No, he's fighting Juicy J. I am down for that. That's a yeah. Juicy J is like fringe boy for me. He's boy worthy, but he isn't quite my boy. But but when I see him, I get more excited. You know, Juicy J is what Charles Jourdain should be for me. You know, like but I love watching Juicy J fight. And Darren Elkins.
I know so many people who have Elkins in their boy stable.
Yeah, yeah, well deserved. He's boy worthy because of the tattoo alone.
We need a Rate My Tat segment on this preview show. We've got what bar? We'll need Rate My Tat.
Yeah, I mean, we can start with mine one day if we get it. I'm covering up. I got the water boy kind of style tattoo. You know, my mama said never get a tattoo. Well, mama don't know.
I was wondering where you were going there. I thought you had like a big picture of Adam Sandler on your chest.
I always think of that Henry Winkler showing off the tattoo on his butt cheek. But mama don't know.
What we do know is we have a very intriguing match which is opening up the main card, and as we teased before, this was originally supposed to be a prelim match, but it has been moved to the main card, and we are going to the light heavyweight division as Nikita Krylov competes for the first time in over 2 years as he takes on Dominic Reyes, who's looking to try and claw his way back up the light heavyweight ladder. And the big storyline coming into this one, Joe, has been that kind of mini resurgence of Dominic Reyes, because obviously he had that match against John Jones, which a lot of people believe that he ended up winning that one. Since then, 3 straight losses. And after that loss against Ryan Spann, a lot of people thought, hey, has Dominic Reyes cracked? Is this guy done for in the UFC? Since then, 2 wins. He beats Anthony Smith, beats Justin Jacoby. Is this Dominic Reyes getting back to the form that took him all the way to that title fight? Or is it kind of the middle ground? Is this the ceiling for him?
I really hope it's the first. The former. I really hope it's the former. Because I thought he cleanly beat John Jones. I don't think there's 2 fights in that era where there's actually a lot of fights of that era where John Jones just has like a middling kickboxing match and until something happens, and then usually nothing happened, but he kind of I think it's debatable him losing. I think it's more accurate that he beat Thiago Santos, but I think that fight's very, very close. So there's like a debate back and forth for me in that one internally. With the Dominic Reyes one, there's no debate. Dominic Reyes whooped on John Jones. I thought it was the same level of margin of victory as Pereira Ankalaev was for me. If that makes sense. Because I'm sure, I thought Pereira Ankalaev was 4-1, pretty easily beating him, pretty easily beating Pereira, comfortably so, and I thought Dominic Reyes comfortably beat John Jones. And the Jan thing, Polish Power, which you called, and the Yuri Fight of the Year, Knockout of the Year, not ever. Probably one of my favorite spinning KOs ever. Because wow, what a fight, what a KO. Okay, but Jiri became champion, so okay, he's only lost to, he really only lost two in a row, champions. And like, okay, sure. Then Ryan Spann with a jab. It's like, okay, this is bad. Like I thought it was over. I legitimately thought it was over. Dustin Jacoby was a crazy KO and a pretty good fight, and the Anthony Smith KO like finish was very good. So I don't have a lot of stock in how good Anthony Smith is. I think just Dustin Jacoby's a higher name opponent personally. In terms of ability, I think Anthony Smith's already like 1 foot out the door. I think he has been for a hot minute. Whereas Dustin Jacoby, he's tough and scrappy and a lot of power. If not a little glass cannony, he can give anyone a tough fight at any given day. So I kind of I personally hope. I think I put more stock and more weight into the Dustin Jacoby win, and I'm hoping this is a return to form because there was a period of time where he was like a more athletic, like what's the what do you call them, the Mick Maynard specials, the guys who are just like super athletes,
the natural athlete,
yeah. So he's like he's a Mick Maynard version of Crow Cop is what he used to fight like, is what I used to think of. And Alex, and without getting too technical, it's because he fought off the three left strategy the same way Crow Cop did. Left straight, left body kick, left high kick. Because all three are the same shoulder motion when you start to throw them. When you throw the body kick, your shoulder, same shoulder moves. Head kick, same shoulder. Left straight, same shoulder. And each one beats the defense of the other one, of the other two. So, like that's how Crow Cop kickboxing just wrecked everybody. He did it in what's it called? Roman Kopilov right now does it probably the best since Crow Cop, but Dominic Reyes, he was doing that for a while. Like he was head kicking everybody. He was catching everybody with straight lefts. Very Mirko Crow Cop-esque to me, but with a pure athlete, like natural athlete kind of background. So I personally love that. So I hope this is a return to form personally.
Well, I certainly hope so as well, because I quite like the guy as well. Just from a personal level, he seems like a decent enough dude. I'm the same as you. I scored it 3-2 for a race when he had that John Jones fight. Good thing you pointed out as well, how reliant he is on that sort of left side of the fence, because his kicks is one of his biggest weapons. Like, he can hammer a lot of fighters with the power he generates. Because I think it's just quite a normal stance in terms of like, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. When you look the way the Dominic Reyes stands, you don't expect him to generate as much power as he does, and yet you feel that kick coming at you, and whether it's low, whether it's high, whether he's attacking the body, which I think is one of the bigger weapons he has, it can really cause some damage. And I think one of the big reasons that Jan had so much success against him was, we've all known for years, Jan Blachowicz' ability to take away an opponent's kicks, and he took away Reyes' biggest weapon.
Mm-hmm. He's able to, and he even he took a couple still and had like a bruise.
Oh yeah, like it was right on his torso. You
could
see that bruise on his torso.
Yeah, I think he only took like 2 or 3, but like he just took away so many kicks. But yeah, he still had like a bruise.
Some of the other big things that stand out for me, not just with the kicks, but I think he's got a great uppercut, especially as a fighter comes in. I think he's counter uppercut. We saw what he did to Chris Weidman, caught him coming in, and the rest was history. There goes Weidman's chance to try and revive his career at 205. I think it was something that...
The Cannoneer, he got the same way.
And I think he caught Jones coming in a couple of times the same way.
He did. It's the big shot everyone talks about, is the... Because Jones tries to like clinch up with him. Just... Yeah. That fight's fun.
247 is a good card. Good. I'd like to cover that sometime on the retro review. Hint, hint.
It's a good card. I mean, even with a Justin Taffa main event or no or main
At
card
least it's short.
appearance, a Taffa brother, yeah, it's only like 2 minutes. Um,
And
oh, actually, yeah, this this is a good card. I remember more about this.
speaking of short fights, that brings us on to Nikita Krylov because when it comes to short matches, Krylov more often than not gets it done within the distance. I think he's only had 2 decisions over his entire MMA career, both of those coming in the UFC. One of them was against Johnny Walker, which I remember for 2 reasons. One, it was on one of the first lockdown cards because we were actually in Brazil, and before they've had that call like 3 days beforehand that they're not going to have any fans there. And also, everybody guaranteeing, hey, this is going to be an amazing fight. There's no way this fight's going to go the distance. And it goes the distance.
Yeah, I remember this card pretty vividly because I was with my ex, hanging out with her kids at a Chuck E. Cheese place, and I was like kind of annoyed I wasn't watching the fight. So I was like, okay, this is the things I do for her. Um, but yeah, because this is the first lockdown card, or technically, like this is the last card before we went into lockdown, but it was the first
Yes,
behind closed
best way to
doors
put
one
it.
because this is the Kevin Lee. I'm going to tap twice and hope no one notices fight. I remember still.
And what in general are your sort of views of Nikita Krylov? Because he's kind of become the forgotten man in this light heavyweight division because the guy is on a 3-fight winning streak. He beat Ryan Spann, Volkan Oezdemir, which is a win which, in my opinion, is aged quite well. Alexander Gustafsson in his last UFC appearance. So, 3-fight winning streak, but he's been so inactive. No one's talking about him as a title challenger, or even like a title eliminator.
He could make a run for the title. I don't think he'd win it personally. I think his ceiling is number one contender personally, but I've been wrong before. I've been very wrong before with people who aren't championship material. Look at middleweight for Christ's sake. Ugh. Um, yeah, it's I actually, I wonder because I think I had him originally in my first boys stable I made for us. I think I originally had him um in that, but I think I probably would have to take him out now. Like, at least I'm probably gonna have to soon because he's kind of too good for it. He's a big him and Reyes is fun because they're both big, tall dudes who throw a lot of kicks, which is very fun. A lot of kicks from these guys, a lot of knees, like and Nikita Krylov, he can grapple pretty well, but if he's that's usually how I see him losing is in the grappling. You know, um, I hate my first. I see my first show, my first recap ever, my debut was him following Paul Craig to the ground, getting triangle choked. But he KO'd Gustafson since then, which hey, like fine, it is what it is. But the Ryan Spann one's always good. And I think that Volkan Ozdemir, I think any win on that guy is really good because that guy is incredibly underrated, I believe. But he's Johnny. I don't understand. He's probably still got that boy. What do the OSW call it? He's got that boy stench on him. It's kind of hard to wear off. Got that boy stench on him. It's kind of hard to wear off. So, but he's got a sick nickname too, Al Capone.
He's also the miner as well.
I don't know if
I
I
kind of
like
like
that
it as
one.
well. It kind of fits all like Krylov. It's all like it's very workhorsey. It's all like down in the dirt and just getting in there.
Okay.
And it fits, in my opinion, the new type of Nikita Krylov because a lot of people make a big deal about his karate background, finish his opponents with a lot of kicks early in his career. I think in recent years he's been a lot more content these days to utilize the grappling, make it dirty, make it grimy, just keep wearing people down with takedowns after takedowns. And bearing in mind, that's maybe one of the weaker sides of Dominic Reyes' game. I wouldn't put it past Krylov to try and go a little bit grappling heavy. Test that a bit.
Hmm. I think this fight is very interesting, and I'm going to make. I have an official prediction, but my technical prediction is the winner of the fight is the one who can who whichever one is
Mm.
controlling the pace of it. And what I mean by that is Dominic Reyes is very content to circle and look for his opening. And if Krylov is putting the pressure forward, if he's the one taking the steps forward, but Dominic Reyes is controlling space with better footwork, like if his footwork is on point, then I think he wins. I think if Krylov is cutting the cage well and or like is the one stopping floating on the outside looking for angles, then I think Krylov wins. And if Cruz is or if Reyes is the one putting the pressure forward and successfully so, like I think whoever controls the distance going backwards or forwards wins this fight because in terms of how they fight on the feet, their best weapon is their kicks, and taking away the kicks from the other person usually means you're kicking back at them and you're putting them on the back foot. The two of the big things you do. One of the reasons why Ankalaev did so well against Fajeda was he was always putting him on the back foot whenever he had a chance to. Uh, and I don't, I do believe the injury, but I don't think it would have mattered. Full disclosure, I don't think it mattered as much as um, I'm sure the world is going to make it out to be.
I saw a stat, about that
Um,
fight, just going off on a tangent. I saw a stat which said that Pereira threw 11 head strikes over the 25 minutes. To put
yeah,
that into perspective, Carla Esparza landed 15 in a match against Rose, which everyone says is like one of the worst title fights ever.
yeah. If I just that's the worst fight ever. Because it's 25 minutes.
Carla won me a lot of
Like
money that night.
I think we both picked her to win. Um, I might have picked Rose because I was like, man, I want Rose to get that redemption. And now I got to be honest, ever since that fight and how she's reacted about talking about that fight, I don't know. I still like Rose. I still like Rose a lot. Obviously, it's hard not to like her, but her attitude lately has been kind of just rubbing me the wrong way. But
You're chuckling about something. Are we going to leave it to Uncage or are you going to tell us now?
Pat 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 Barry always finds a way to come into these conversations. Of course, we got a guy nicknamed the Miner, and Pat Barry shows up in conversation.
And that's us demonetized. Didn't even get to the Bryce Mitchell bit and we're
There
already
goes my
demonetized. So, so which way are you going to go with this one, Joe?
uh, my heart's my I love both of these guys. So my heart is torn. My brain says Krylov. So I'm actively rooting for both men to have a very entertaining draw, and they both move up the rankings. But my heart says Krylov by decision. I could see him finishing Reyes because of Reyes is shown to be a little bit chinny. He's I don't think he's necessarily overly hittable. I just think if you do hit him, he knows it.
And
If that makes
Krylov's
sense.
almost the opposite,
Um,
in that Krylov gets hit a lot, but I
yeah,
think he's got a pretty good chin.
yeah. Like the only guys that like he's been KO'd before, but it was like Soa Palele, who
Heavyweight.
is literally called the Hulk. Yeah, that dude is basically a super heavyweight who took him down and just smashed on him. Yeah, that's my personal pick. I'm gonna go Krylov decision.
I'm going to lean towards Krylov as well. I think he's a very underrated fighter,
Okay.
and there's still some concerns about
Yeah.
Reyes' chin, Reyes' confidence, that I just can't commit to picking him to win. I will say, though, if Dominic Reyes was to win, I think that could be a more interesting sort of player at the top end of 205.
Yeah, because in terms of his skill sets, terrifying dude. Terrifying dude. And you know what's crazy about him too? This is very quick. Um, Dominic Reyes openly admits that everything he did, like in terms of planning, game planning, and practicing his skills, was designed to beat John Jones. Like him and his team found a style that his athleticism and body type was good at, and he himself was naturally good at, and they just tailored everything. Like, how do we make this work against John Jones? So, like, and it's I don't like John Jones at all. I don't think he's GOAT. Even without the steroids, I don't consider him a GOAT level fighter. Very very scorching hot take there. Uh, but I think that's very impressive how much success he's had being designed to fight one guy. Not to pour salt in your open wound here, but it's very Holly Holm esque. Where to me, where it's like Holly Holm isn't very impressive outside of when she fought Ronda, who it's almost like she's designed to fight Ronda. Um, like she's going to look impressive as hell. Whereas Dominic Reyes is like the upgrade of that. He's been impressive as hell, not fighting the guy he's designed to fight for as well for me. So uh, that's one reason. He. All I'm saying is Dominic Reyes over Holly Holm.
There's going to be a lot of fan fiction about that now. You put it into the world, it's going to be out there. One final thing I'll say about Nikita Krylov is if you look at the guys that Krylov has lost to, his last 4 losses, he's had some pretty decent opponents. Like, there's no shame in losing to these guys. Like, he has lost to Jan Blachowicz, Glover Teixeira, Magomed Ankalaev, and Paul Craig. It's kind of like that meme with, like, the dragons. Like, 3 of them are, like, really mean mugging.
Oh,
yes.
The King Ghidorahs. Yeah. Yeah. I saw one as a Sopranos fan. You'll love this. It was Johnny Boy Soprano, Corrado Soprano Jr., and then Ercole. um, yeah. I mean, hey, three champions out of that 4 champions if we can consider Paul Craig.
Yes,
champion
he is the total boy. Total boy. He's totally in my boy stable. I think
absolutely. He's first boylet Hall of Fame.
I think these 2 guys are both way too good to be part of our boys stable, but they are going to be part of the second fight on the main card. And we're going to be saying something which a lot of people never thought we would ever be saying. Welcome to the UFC Patricio Pitbull. You'll be taking on Yair Rodriguez in your debut. It is a featherweight bout, this one. And to put this into perspective for a lot of people, when you asked fans who they considered to be the greatest fighters to never fight in the UFC, Fedor Emelianenko is obviously like the white elephant. Like, the UFC wanted him, spent years trying to get him, and they turned down all their approaches. If you had to say who was number 2 for a long, long time, it was Patricio Pitbull. And now he has made the jump at 37 years old. This is probably going to be his last major run in a promotion. Joe, what was your reaction when you found out that Pitbull was signing? Do you think it's a good move for his part? Have the UFC missed the boat by doing it too late? Where do you personally stand?
I think it's a little too late, but I don't think they could have gotten it at any other time. That said, how are you not excited to see this guy fight? Like, there was a period, you said that the best guys to never fight in the UFC. Another one for me was like, I used to hear a lot is like, who's the best guy not fighting in the UFC? And I always said two guys. I said Roberto Soldic for a long time, and Patricio Pitbull. I was like, but that's not what I said. I used to say the good Pitbull brother. I think it's not Patricio. And because this guy is Bellator's greatest fighter ever. No, maybe Royce Gracie because he's 1-0 there, but unbeaten. But he did it on purpose. So I don't know. Maybe not.
Like, you're obviously a WWE fan, Joe.
Yeah.
Do you know the vibes I'm getting from Pitbull being in the UFC? It's kind of reminding me of when Sting made the jump.
Yeah. The AEW, of course, where he was High Flyer of the Year.
I mean, the guy was 60 and he was doing stuff like that, jumping off
Yeah.
balconies.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, I always make fun of that meme. Like I always bring up that meme, but in reality, that run was like really good. Like his run in AEW is very good. Uh he we found out that he's immune to nipple twists. Um I mean, but no, he was awesome in AEW actually. He was I mean, I'm hot take here. Don't get mad. Don't press your Austin Powers button. Um I love Bret Hart. Love Bret Hart. Bret Hart in the ring is nearly unmatched, except for maybe like three or four guys I can think of. I personally like Sting more, even though I am a WWE over WCW guy. I don't know. There's something about Sting that is just so cool. Like I imitate the like he does, like a lot. Like I don't know. I love Sting, but I definitely get where you're coming from because it is like it's kind of like when they brought trying to think. It's like when they brought all the like aging WCW guys over. It's like we got Kevin Nash. He's an NWO. God protect his quads, like back in the day. Um, I hope this is a good run, but he is 37 years of age. He has been slowing down a little bit.
So for anybody who is only ever watches UFC, didn't even think about watching Bellator, didn't even think about watching the PFL, what is it about Pitbull that makes him so exciting? What made him such a good fighter? What's the deal about Patricio Pitbull?
So he came up in shoot to box. So if you know what shoot, then you know. Okay, this is for people who've never watched like anything but UFC. Well, one will say they started when Conor got those two belts. It's like that's he's like the pioneer, Conor McGregor. Like for people like that, nothing wrong with that. We all got to start somewhere. Um, I would say Pitbull is for a long time. He actually this is a pretty good comparison. He was Vanderlei has like a legendary career that has kind of transcended time within pride. I know a lot of people who are very casual in MMA, but they see Vanderlei, they go, "What is that guy all about?" And then you put him on, and it just like it's like the ending of 2012: A Space Odyssey. um, Whenever they see Vanderlei fight back in the day, he kind of was their Vanderlei in Bellator. Like he wasn't as like near flawless as Vanderlei was. He had some losses. Joe Warren got one on him. I think Pat Curran got him. Back in the who I was a big fan of. I think Pat Curran got him, but he was knocking everyone out, or he would knock you down, and if he couldn't get the finish in like that next like 2 or 3 seconds, he's taking you're taking your neck with like a choke or something. And he has not, and he was a featherweight, went up to lightweight, and just knock out more people. Tyson Chandler being one of them.
Michael Chandler.
Tyson Chandler. That's funny. Tyson Chandler's a basketball player. Michael Chandler. Well, they call him Iron Mike.
I mean, if he did knock out Tyson Chandler, that would be impressive.
Yeah, Tyson Chandler is he's like 7-footer, you know. Huge streak of unbeaten. Like he was their double champ at one point. He I think he's like gone over to Ryzen and smashed on their dudes over there. He just was battering everybody with crazy fast punches because he trained with Shootabox and then started training with Cejudo's team with Paulo Costa, Cejudo. What's the name of? I always forget their manager's name. I just use Stacey Laughter because
with the glasses. Yeah,
with his glasses. Yeah, because he trains with them, and surprisingly does not headbutt as much as Cejudo, but he has like a mix of Muay Thai and karate stylings. That's very interesting. Like it's a patient chaos. Like wait, it's like when you like you tie, like you have a spring like just really tightly wound, and it's always like that. Like he's gonna wait for his opening, might throw a couple kicks, and then the second you let that spring go, here comes just 100-mile-an-hour fastball coming down the pipe, and it's probably knocking your head clean off. He just has tons of power and is terrifying. And he looked like the clear best guy outside of the UFC for a while. And then Antonio McKee's kid choked him out. And which is cool. I'm only laughing about that because I it's so crazy to me that AJ McKee fights nothing like his dad. Thank God. Thank God he fights nothing like his dad.
His dad was John Fitch levels
man.
of boring.
Dude, his dad makes John Fitch look like Vanderlei Silva. Like I have never seen anybody fight like it. Like it's almost like blatantly disrespect. He makes Belal Muhammad, who I know is like the current hotness of boring. Like I meme on the Belal Muhammad thing too. He is boring to me, but like he's just the current guy. Like it's not a big deal. Like whatever. Like he's winning fights. I can't fault it. But he makes like how people describe Belal Muhammad look like you're look like Mad Max Fury Road by comparison. Just in and then AJ McKee fights nothing like that. AJ McKee's actually fun and doesn't make me tired by thinking about him. Because gosh, I got to be honest, I got to stop thinking about Antonio McKee. I'm gonna fall asleep on the. Who needs melatonin, dude? Just go watch an Antonio McKee highlight reel. But this guy's it's a little too late, which sucks, but it is what it is. A lot of guys like Patricio Pitt. I have a very funny story about him. Also, I'll save for the end. But like Michael Chandler came over way too late. It sucks, but it is what it is. Patricio Pitbull came over way too late. Thankfully, Horiguchi came back right when he needed to.
Yeah. So I think if you had to compare Pitbull's style on paper, you can tell that him and Henry Cejudo trained together because it's very similar styles. Quite stocky, wrestle boxers, like to stay quite light on their feet. I think a couple of the big differences is I think Cejudo likes to move forward a lot more than Pitbull. Pitbull's more reliant on countering, which he can do really well. And I think bearing in mind that Yair Rodriguez is very much the kind of guy that likes to push the pace, likes to press forward, I think that could work stylistically. And we're going to see whether or not Pitbull still has the reflexes to catch a guy like Yair coming in. And also as well, a very dangerous guillotine. Of Pitbull's last four submissions, all four have come by guillotine. So if he's able to sort of like get Yair into a clinch position, look for him to try and utilize that. Because wasn't it Sanchez where he hooked up into the clinch and then jumped for the gilly?
Yeah, Manuel. Yeah. Don't be silly. Jump for the gilly.
I bet Poirier, when somebody does that, I bet Poirier, it's like that meme in The Simpsons with Homer at the barbecue. That's one good-looking guillotine. Why doesn't mine look like that?
Oh, yeah. It's a great-looking guillotine. Why does mine look like that? I always think of the meme in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I know that one.
There I am. Yeah, there I am. Dustin Poirier, she's going to retire soon, and he is just the gift that keeps on giving even now.
There is two sides to the Pitbull story, though, and that side comes in the form of Yair Rodriguez, 19-6 record. He comes into this fight off a loss. He lost to Brian Ortega, which I think was on last year's Mexico card. Outside of that, though, former interim title winner, beating the likes of Josh Emmett for the belt. Beat Ortega the first time he fought. Jeremy Stevens, Korean Zombie, Dan Hooker, the ghost of BJ Penn as well. I do get the feeling, though, with Yair, which, don't get me wrong, very good fighter, incredibly talented. But I kind of feel like his place in the rankings is kind of based off past glories. And I think if you look at what Yair has been doing recently, there's a few little question marks.
Horace Griffin once said, "This sport is a what have you done for me lately sport," and I hate how true that is. I despise it. Because you and me often lament how much the lack of love legends and older vets get in the sport. Like our history is kind of like MMA has not been around for a very long time in the grand scheme of sports, of course, but we have a very, very, very rich, diverse, and just incredible stories in our history that just get overlooked. And that's one of the reasons why, like, things like the retro review were very fun to do, and because some of the stories are just incredible in it. Um, like it's so much fun to talk about like some of these moments. Uh, that said, there's a there's a flip side to that. Is sometimes there's almost overcorrection in looking back at history and time and seeing like man. Remember when Yair Rodriguez beat up BJ Penn? Every time he fights, I have to fucking.
There's more demonetization.
Every time he fights, every time he fights, I have to see that darn BJ Penn like thing pop up on YouTube, like of here's him smashing BJ Penn, isn't he awesome? And Yair Rodriguez is very good. I thought Josh Emmett was gonna like catch him with a punch because I don't think Yair's boxing is very good personally. Um, and like no, he what's it called? Drop my toothpick. Um, like I mean, like he's still very good, but the Brian Ortega fight was like, even though he nearly finished Ortega, he still lost, got finished, and definitely got choked a little too long. I do love the meme of when your mom catches you and your brother wrestling, and you got to say you weren't hurting him. It's like him like right after letting go, like add that to the ref. That's always a funny one. Volkanovski made it look really easy against him. And one of those guys is still very high level. The Brian Ortega one does not inspire confidence in his current standings as a fighter, personally, with me. So I'm a little worried about that. I'm a little right there with you. But we talked about Yair Rodriguez way more on this. We've talked about Yair way more than I ever thought we would in preview shows because there was just a period of time where he wasn't fighting. You know, 2 year gap between the Jeremy Stevens fight and the Max Holloway fight, and we didn't know if he was signing. Is he staying? Is he going? I don't know. Who cares? Like it was a lot. But that said, I mean, like, what can we not say about the guy? The guy is such a bundle of fun to watch when he's on.
Definitely, and a very kick-heavy game as well. Light on his feet, prefers to work in space. I think that level of unpredictability as well has been one of his big weapons, I think, because like how many times have we seen Yair catch people like we saw with Zombie with the elbow over the shoulder, flying knee up against Andre Feely, so he can be as explosive and as wild as they can come across, and that does give me some kind of concerns in a guy in Patricio Pitbull who I think at 37 he is starting to show signs that maybe the chin is breaking down a little bit. We saw AJ McKee catch him with the head kick. He got put out in Ryzen. I think it was Suzuki. I think he faced in Ryzen.
He fought their big, not they're like same size guy as him, but they're like super.
Yeah, because I know he beat Clever Erst because he did that Bellator Ryzen crossover, and that was quite comfortable. And I think it was Suzuki.
Yeah, I have it right here. Was it? It was. Yeah, it was Suzuki. Chihiro Suzuki just full on man. That fight was at 155, and I know some people were like, "Oh, that don't let that affect you." It was like, but he's like in 100. He's been champion at 155. It's not, So, but I think these like bigger, longer guys do give him some trouble. But I mean, in fairness, in the AJ McKee rematch, he was very comfortable. It was a closer fight, and he won, but. He was very, very, very comfortable, at least with the size disadvantage, because AJ McKee is a very long, lanky type of fighter. he's probably the closest guy in terms of the comparison of Yair to one of the past opponents of Patricio. Like, I think, okay, this is actually kind of funny. In terms of like, I think this is something I should probably look into more, is guys that the other has fought and that's similar to their opponent. Patricio probably has the closest thing he could get to Yair, at least closer than what Yair could get to Patricio, because Patricio fought AJ McKee. The only thing I can think, the only guy I can think of that like I go, I guess that's kind of like Pitbull, is like Jeremy Stevens or Josh Emmett.
Frankie maybe being a bit of a wrestle boxer.
See, Frankie makes the most sense to me, but that
Nowhere
power,
near.
I think, yeah, like Frankie's gonna punches and bunches you, or he's gonna just, Frankie did have power. Don't get me wrong, but like it wasn't like one punch stifling power. It was like, oh, if he catches you on the chin, you could go down. Like he could catch it clean. But he's most likely gonna just death by 1,000 cuts you. If he's gonna
the narrative around this fight, I think is very similar to a narrative I have about the main event, in that if Patricio Pitbull fought this match in his prime, I don't think there's any question. I think Pitbull wins this one comfortably.
Oh,
it's whether or not the
agreed.
age and the mileage have caught up to him that it gives the underdog, in inverted commas, a chance, and that's where I'm a little bit unsure about.
So, fun fact: I threw away most of my notes this morning because as I was smoking, my nicotine addiction to kind of pop up because I slept past my first alarm at 7:30 my time, and I woke up at my second one like 7:45, and I was like, "Oh, I need to be quick." I was looking over my notes and I threw away most of them because all week I've been thinking about this one. Like, this is the fight I probably thought about the most in terms of, because I've gone back and forth. I initially had Patricio winning by either a late stoppage or a decision. Like, because it was kind of giving me, this is not a very fair comparison, but this fight kind of gives me like MVP Kevin Holland vibes in that sense. Another old aging guy, that star from Bellator that UFC is yoinked up. It feels very much like when they signed Gomi to me, like years after Pride fell out, right? It's kind of the vibe I get. But I think I'm going to go with Yair here because of the age. And there's something about the length that I think if I'm comfortable if Yair is pushing the pace or backing off here. And I think that's huge. I think him engaging Pitbull and using his length to kind of get around the tightly wound spring, I think could be very well. But I think him being on the back foot, kind of like throwing a lot of crazy wild kicks and having fun, could put Pitbull in trouble. That said, I have one quick thing. Man, Yair's chin
you brought up my point
up in the air when he's throwing punches.
But I think it's held up. I do think the chin is held up so far.
Yeah. The only time it didn't was Volkanovski, and that was like just
that was like sustained ground
50
and
bombs.
pound.
Yeah, he got smashed on the feet for like 3 rounds, and then finally went down, and then got ground and pounded for another minute. You know what I mean? So a little bit different.
I'm same as you. I'm going to lean towards Rodriguez winning this one. I just think the age, the mileage, the chin, it's just, there's too many question marks about Pitbull. And I say this as somebody who wants Pitbull to succeed. One question I will have, though, before we wrap up this segment. Obviously, Volkanovski and Lopez are going to be fighting for the belt. Could you make an argument that if Patricio Pitbull was to win, bearing in mind his age and bearing in mind the UFC don't like Evloev, do you think they can maybe do the winner of the main event versus Pitbull title fight?
Pitbull has to win very convincingly. He has to kind of have that MVP Kevin Holland performance, and I think he does get it. Because no disrespect to Kevin Holland, and he himself would admit this, is not a title contender by any stretch. Whereas Yair Rodriguez, you can agree or disagree if he truly is an heir of title contention around him. Um, that like Brian Ortega is probably a very appealing target to a lot of guys right now in a similar vein because Brian Ortega is coming down like he's fading, and beating him is a very good name to have on your record and be like, I beat Brian Ortega. Yeah, give me a title shot.
Fight number 3, and we are staying in the featherweight division, and we are moving on to the fight that will probably get us cancelled off YouTube. So it's a good thing, Joe, you're wearing something a little bit comfortable, because these are some very murky waters we're having to deal with.
Oh yeah. Well, I had to get out of that the button up. As fun as the button up was and doing some Razor Ramon jokes, um, because he's Vice City, Scarface, and Razor Ramon are what I know about Miami. No, that's not true. But I don't think basketball deep references in basketball would fly here. I will say though, yeah, that shirt was from three Joe sizes ago. It was not the most comfortable fit for my newfound girth. Very very Norm Macdonald-esque. These stripes may be slimming, but it did not crick the stairs as they collapsed under my newfound girth.
So as you probably indicated now, we are talking about Bryce Mitchell here. He will be defending his place in the featherweight rankings as he takes on the hard-hitting Brazilian João Silva. And I think it's safe to say, Joe, in mixed martial arts, controversy and fighters go together almost like PB and J. But even in the world that has the Colby Covingtons, the Sean Stricklands of the world, anyone associated with Kadyrov, I think you can make an argument that at this moment in time, Bryce Mitchell is the most controversial of them all.
You're probably getting me number one right now because he's an idiot. He's an absolute idiot. Um, the person in pop culture that because we talked about this before, of like, hey, let's got to find a way to skirt around it while talking about it. He's to quote Mike Goldberg, Kanye West-esque in his approach to life philosophy and being an idiot. Is I guess a way to say it. But unlike Kanye, I can at least be like, man, every Graduation and the albums before that are really good. I don't think Bryce Mitchell has, it's just not happening. That dude is just he's a full-on idiot.
And I think the way that the UFC have handled this as well has really, I've had a real icky feeling with the way that the UFC have dealt with, because I think we all know what Bryce said, and I don't think any of us can forgive the comments, even if it was meant with good intentions. I think everybody has a line that they come across when it comes to sort of like things you say and things you do. And Bryce, with some of the comments he made, crossed that line. And I think the UFC are kind of, well, there's two ways. One, they're kind of emboldening his comments by not getting rid of him. And on top of that, to then say, hey, you hate this guy, he said some stupid things, pay $80 to go and watch him get knocked out. I just think that side of it as well, it just feels very dodgy to me.
I don't like it. I don't know. I think there's certain things you can say and do that take away your right to be platformed a little bit. Like cancel culture is like a big talking. I don't know how it is over there. Huge talking point over here. And I'm not saying that we should cancel him, because that doesn't mean anything. But I think the problem is putting him in a high key matchup, a marquee matchup, where let's be honest, he's probably getting knocked unconscious again. I personally think I think he's getting Josh Emmett 2.0 here. Um, I still you still have to have him. You still have to roll him out for PR. Sadly, you know, and you can't giving a guy like that a platform. After that is kind of where I go. You know, this would be one thing if it was some dork coming off of coming off the Contender Series, making like 7-7 on his contract. You know, it'd be one thing, right? But this is a guy who's ranked, who at one point was unbeaten and considered the number two, maybe number one by some people, prospect at featherweight, next to who? Ilia
Like, I remember a lot of
Topuria.
people going into that
Uh,
fight, and they were saying whoever wins that fight, they're going to be the unicorn. They're going to be the one that people need to keep an eye
mhm.
out for.
That was one of my favorite cards you and me broke down, like or fights we ever broke down because it really felt like you and me were talking about like the future right there. Like, you know, both guys young, unbeaten, hadn't really had much in terms of struggle in their career at that point, at least at professional. Obviously, Bryce lost on tough, but it was like, hey, like this is the one. And then, of course, history shows Topuria dog walked Bryce Mitchell, showed that he isn't. He Topuria said, yeah, you know what, Bryce can be the number one prospect because I'm the number one contender. Horrifying guy, hauntingly types. Tori's the man, terrifying. But I think, like, I don't know. It just it irks me. It irks me the wrong way. I'm very much a person of like, you think everything. I'm a person that's like, I think everything's funny. I can laugh at any joke. I've had some tragedies in my life. Like my father passed away. I make jokes about that. Myself even. I really it wouldn't be surprised if it's like once, maybe three times a month I go. It's like, yeah, my dad, like, I don't know, he doesn't call me, dude. He's like, I don't understand what's wrong. And the jokes like that, right? Like, I think everything's funny. Yeah, what Bryce said is a little like, dude, how stupid
Yeah.
are you? Like, you're just
That's
stupid. Like, it's incredibly
that's the one thing I
offensive.
will say is I do think there's people who are trying to frame this narrative of, oh, this proves that Bryce Mitchell is sort of like devil spawn. No, I think it's a sign of how ignorant he is.
Mm, yeah, I agree. He's not like he I I'm not gonna say like, oh, saying that makes you instantly a bad person. It can. I just think he's stupid, and I don't think being stupid is a sin, if that makes sense. But it is a laughable and punishment booking offense. Case in point.
And it's a good thing you brought that up here because we will talk about the person who a lot of people are going to be rooting for. I would say about 90% of the audience are going to be rooting for this man. It is Jean Silva. And I think it's safe to say, Joe, this guy has been in the UFC now for looking at 14 months since he made his UFC debut. What an impact he has already made. I mean, there was a very sort of like shallow walk into the UFC. I think he faced Weston Wilson, who I don't believe is UFC level. I mean, good on Weston for getting that win, but I don't think he's of a good enough quality to be part of the promotion. Since then, though, Charles Jourdain, Drew Dober, and even Melsik Baghdasaryan, like these are guys who are very incredibly tough, great strikers, and he's just steamrolling through them.
They're they're durable, good fighters, and he he's just walking through them. Like Drew Dober is probably at the end of his career because like recent durability issues, but he was still like I think this guy broke it, you know. Like I think he's the durability breaker there. Like, and he went up in weight for the fight. He's a featherweight. He went to lightweight to fight Drew Dober on short notice and didn't care and decimated him. Yeah, 'cause it's only 2 weeks in between. 2 week notice fights Drew Dober
Upper weight
at
class.
lightweight. smashes him. The fighting nerds are terrifying, terrifying people. I had a friend who was like, it was the last card, right? Because Rufy fought in the last card, and he was like, King Green gonna get an easy win, and I just started laughing. I said, no. I was like, and he was like, what do you mean no? And I was like, I don't know who this Mauricio Rufy is. I said, he's from the Fighting Nerds team, dude, and because he hasn't watched a ton in like the last 2 years, and he was like, who? And I said, oh yeah, you've missed this. Let me explain, because he had his second daughter and like his first two kids. Like I think his kids are like 3 and 1 right now, so he hasn't watched a lot of fights. And I had to tell him about the Fighting Nerds, and he was still not really buying it. Then here comes Rufy with the wheel kick, and he went, "What? Like, yeah, like these guys are no joke."
What do you think it is about the
And
Fighting Nerds that's made them such a good team? Because I think the thing that I find quite intriguing is if you look at people who train at a certain gym, a lot of the time there's certain tropes that you can pick up. So you think about alpha male with the guillotine, you think so like the wild, wide stances of shooter box fighters. But yet all the Fighting Nerds seem to fight differently. John Silver is very different to Rufy. Rufy is very different to Baralho. It's that's what makes it intriguing to me.
so I'm glad you said that, because I have it pulled up here on a page because I knew I wasn't going to remember all this. So Bordaio founded the team, right? This is technically his team, because he's the original fight nerd. Uh, Even though he has some cringy tattoos, the dude looks like what happens if Paulo Costa went to college. Like, but they have like Wagner Mota, who is known for being Damian Maia's grappling coach, which,
Ooh.
ooh, arguably a top three grappler ever is Damian Maia. Like everyone knows him, like, oh, the boring guy in MMA, and it's like, let's talk about him in
I
just pure
love Damian
grappling.
Maia. I thought there was something
Me
so
too. Yeah,
throwback about his style, and you just think this guy shouldn't be successful in mid 2010s MMA. And he fought for a belt. He fought for twice. He fought for a belt twice with this
two
very
belts,
antiquated style. That's
two
how
different
good Damian
divisions.
Maia was.
Damian Maia was the man. Like, well, he's I don't think he's like Carlos Condit levels of like. Funny enough, he's beaten Carlos Condit, but he's not Carlos Condit levels of like best guy to never win an undisputed title. Like everyone kind of defaults to Condit, right, on that. Um, but Damian Maia is like one of the best guys to never win a strap, for sure in my book. And in terms of grappling, he's in my top three ever, because I've watched him decimate Gabriel Gonzaga in ADCC, which is because at 185 he wasn't really cutting weight, right? Like, so he was like, I think 195 when he rolled with Gonzaga, who at the time was like 255, and he beat him. Like, he beat him clean. It's like, um, Marcelo Garcia, of course, if anyone is a grappling fanatic like myself, Marcelo Garcia is my pick for the greatest grappler of all time. But this team is so good. And here's what blows my mind, right? Is they've had a member of their team in before everybody else. And I'm trying to be rude here. I am never impressed with this guy. And it's Thiago Moises. Like, he's part of the Fighting Nerds. He's like their black sheep in a weird way. Like, I'm never impressed with him. But the rest of them, Cal Barrio is probably going to be fighting for a title. In fact, I got to be honest, if he fights Duplessis right now, I'm probably making a mistake because I always doubt Duplessis, but I'm picking Barrio in that fight. Carlos Prates, we talked about earlier, he would have been on this card. Rufy, we've talked about. John Silva, we're talking about now. These guys are horrifying, and it's weird. None of them fight the same, but they all have the same three coaches. Cal Borraio helps out with all of them because it's his gym. They have Pablo Sucupira, I think is how you say his name, Sucupira, maybe Sushapira. I can see it being Sushapira, who is their striking coach who is the reason. Oh, he's the reason Barrio fights as well as he does now, as what Barrio says, because this guy apparently he breaks down how to strike in data analytics. That's one reason why they're called the fighting nerds too, is they use data analytics to like break down fights. I remember hearing about this, I think a while ago, where it's hey, hypothetically here, Bryce Mitchell, 49%, 49.8% of the time, drops his right hand when he goes to throw a lead left punch from the rear side. If he wants to lead with his rear hand, he drops his lead right hand. You know, and so 49.8% of the time, you can throw a left hook to clobber him. Like they apparently break it down like that. And GSP had the infamous moment or the infamous story of they had a guy in a gym who would rate reaction times on frames. Like he'd be like, and they found out BJ Penn as the fastest reaction uh, at the time in MMA history. So that's why like GSP wore him out in their second fight by just constant feints because he knew BJ would always bite on him. And apparently they've taken that mentality and they just rolled with it to the top. Um, which, but
Very Moneyball, isn't it?
all these guys are, yeah, and I love it. And I got to be honest, I love this team. I I don't know how you feel. I think you're a fan of them as well. Based on how we talk about them, these guys are awesome.
So, speaking about John Silver in a bit more detail here, obviously we talked about the different styles and different approaches that each of the fight nerds take. What makes John Silver stand out for you? Is it just a power thing, or is there more intricacies to his game than just that big right hand?
I think he's actually kind of slick. I don't think he's as slick as a. In, hmm. So if he's pretty slick because he's from that camp of all flicksters, when it comes like Rufy is incredibly clean with his striking and very terrifying. Rufy is kind of, I remember people going like, yeah, he's their wild man, and it's like, he kind of is. He's their
Yeah.
flashy guy. He's their guy that is, like I got to do the coolest thing ever. And
There's a lot of
it's him.
featherweight McGregor about Rufy.
Yeah, very, very much so. I like that. That's a very good comparison, I think. Chow Budayo is like or Cal Budayo. I always want to call him Chow because of Chow Magalesh back in the day. But Cal Budayo he's kind of like a scalpel. It's going to be very surgical. Sometimes it's not entertaining, and that's okay. But he's going to win. And it's going to be a very clean, calculated win, either with the striking or with the grappling. This guy doesn't feel like, I know like they always say, oh, the scalpel and the chainsaw, right? This guy doesn't feel like a chainsaw. He feels like a bulldozer, like a tank, because he every shot he hits people with, you can see like the reverberations in their body, and he's hitting people often. Like I wish his punches were a little bit tighter, but that's just like my nitpicking. Um, it just guy like his jabs kind of give me like, this is a very like lofty comparison, but his jabs remind me of old prime 20-year-old Mike Tyson, where he would like jab a guy, then do it like a head movement, and you would see the guy's like body just like almost like what the heck did he just jab me with? um, this guy has like that weird Pajeda-esque power kind of vibe I get from him, and he just feels like a tank bulldozer. He's gonna get in the pocket and he's gonna knock you out.
And I think his work in the pocket
Kind of
is
vibe I
very
get from
good
him.
as well. I mean, especially his counters, like use of his
Yeah,
elbows, the left hooks. That was one thing I noticed with Dorber, was that every time that Dorber came forward, he was reading every single time when he was going to throw it and catching him with the hook every single time Dorber came in.
I think he caught. Didn't he catch him with that like standing like
Yeah,
elbow as he stepped in, and that's what like
which
busted him
I always
open.
love. I always love the counter elbow.
Yeah. Oh, Tony
One
Ferguson
thing I will
style.
say though, which I do have a little bit of I err on the side of caution when it comes to Jean Silva. I know you can't put too much weight into the regionals, bearing in mind how young the fighters are, the different sort of approaches, the different sort of intangibles that come with fighting in
Records.
the regional scene. But I have seen a lot of regional fights of John Silva where he has spent extended amounts of time on the ground. Bearing in mind how good of a grappler Bryce Mitchell is, does that give you a little bit of a concern? Because I do think that
I I did the same
ever
thing.
since the Josh Emmett fight, which obviously didn't go well for Bryce, I think there's a lot of people who try and make him out as if he's some kind of Ben Askren level striker. He's not. He's got... Obviously, there's a big difference in quality between his striking and his grappling. But let's not act like Bryce Mitchell doesn't know what he can do with his hands. And I do think people are maybe
Yeah,
downplaying
got hands.
how solid Bryce Mitchell can be. Because I think most people are expecting John
Hmm.
Silva to go in there and steamroll him. And I'm just not 100% committed to that theory.
Yeah. I'm like 80-20 on it personally, but that's also that's as like you can hear, you can probably tell from how much I just talked about him. I'm really high on the
Yes.
fighting nerds. So
I mean, hey, John Silva is
um
a big favourite going into this one. He's quite rightly should be. But I can
yeah,
see a way Bryce Mitchell can win this fight.
absolutely. There's no such thing as a 100% guaranteed win. We've seen crazy things. The last time I said a fight is 100% guaranteed, I have never been more wrong before in a
And that
fight.
was...
I said I said Ben Askren was going to beat Masvidal uh, in a clean 30-25 wrestle domination. I full disclosure, whenever we signed Ben Askren, I forgot about the hip replacement. Totally forgot about that hip replacement. I said Ben Askren's going to just do what he's always done and be champion. Like there's no one stopping this guy. Like George was the only guy going to stop this guy. Like Ben Askren's killing everybody. And I said, yeah, he's gonna beat George. He's gonna beat George by like either a late stoppage because he just says, "No, I'm done toying with you," or he's gonna decision him like very, very easily and convincingly. And yeah, it was the fastest KO ever. So I literally picked it's gonna go the full extent of the fight, and it went the shortest amount of time it can be. And then I said it'd be a decision win for one guy and it's a knockout for the other guy. I don't think there is scientifically a way I could be more wrong than that. Um, Outside of maybe Mario Kart Banana knocks out Ben Askren on the way to the ring. That's a funny image in my head.
So we
Swinging for the
touched
cup.
earlier on about the UFC's decision A to keep Bryce on as part of the promotion, B book this fight, and a lot of people are hoping and dare I say expecting Jean Silva to win this one. One thing I will say though is, what happens if Bryce pulls the upset? Because bearing in mind the bad PR that Bryce has given the company with some of the comments he's made, the idea of him winning a decision and a Florida crowd cheering him on and Bryce saying something in the post-fight interview, this could be a bit of a PR disaster for the UFC if this goes the way people don't expect it to.
Mm. It's kind of scary. They're gonna put a live mic. I think I gotta be honest. I think you have a contingency in place, and I think you tell Bryce ahead of time, like, "Hey, man, if you win, we're not putting a live mic in front of you." I think you have to do that, or
They just choose not to
I
interview
think I
him.
got a solution. Yeah, I think they don't put. I just think they choose not to. Here's a more fun option. Hear me out. You have a security guard there with like a cattle prod, and the second he starts getting off rails, all right, that's our Bryce Mitchell, everybody. Um, I got to be honest. I've been thinking about this for a while. Um, did it hurt when you had to like get rid of your mixtape of Pasture Fire?
Not especially, no.
Remember that? You didn't remember that? It's crazy that he's the best rapper. Honestly, what's that song he had? He had a song that was actually pretty good. He was not horrible. The talent was kind of there. It wasn't like a Tyron Woodley situation where it's like, oh my God, this is terrible. Get this
Better
out
or
of here.
worse than Roy Jones?
So, Can't Be Touched is a banger, but I'm tired of hearing it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a Robert Whitaker fan. I've heard that song 1,000 times in my life, but I also played the crap out of Fight Night 2004, the first Fight Night game. Um, Still, I like that Undisputed game a lot. The best boxing game ever is still Fight Night Round 3. Um, and Champion's pretty good too, but Fight Night Round 1, that's the song that plays in the intro, and it's like the first song that plays. You know, it's what what did Bryce Mitchell have? He had a song called
When I think
R is it
when
he had some
when
heat.
I think of Can't Be Touched, I always think that someone did a compilation of. Do you remember Cindy Dandois? Like she had one
Yeah, I
fight
do.
in the UFC and like she got
Yeah.
cut immediately because the performance was that bad. And someone did a compilation of her performance and Can't Be Touched was the music.
Cindy Dandois is because I remember thinking she was kind of like our what's it called our soccer mom that Alina Lay McFarlane fought.
Well,
Uh,
she
yeah,
was
and then she fought.
essentially the Jessamine Duke to Misha's Ronda.
That's fair. Yeah, that's where she trained
Yeah.
with, right? Was Misha? Yeah, crazy that she fought Kayla Harrison later. Yeah,
She did, yes, in the
always
PFL.
with like yeah, she had like I remember like 'cause she had like the in the UFC she had like that giant oversized shirt. I'm guessing because she has her
Mm.
proportions needed it. Like I'm assuming, I don't know. She had like the giant oversized shirt and was like, I was like, man, like listen, throw some kya, and you know what? Her and Caitlin Chukagian is the battle of the
And who would
strikers.
have thought that striking would be the template for Juliana Pena to win the title? We could see some Pena level striking from one of the people in our core main event, lightweight division time, and it is Michael Chandler who is going to be taking on Paddy Pimblett in this one. And I think, Joe, as much as we clown about some elements of this fight, I have to give the UFC credit. I actually think the matchmaking for this fight is very, very good. I think you've got a Michael Chandler
Mhm.
who still has some name value, but I think is in the twilight of his career. You've got a guy that the UFC are very interested in with Paddy Pimblett. They want to try and give him the sort of risk adverse sort of path to the top five, top six as they can. I think those two coming together, I think that makes perfect sense. What I disagree with though is a 5 round pay-per-view co-main.
Forgot it's 5 rounds. That's horrible.
I think especially
I don't like. I
especially
don't.
given Michael Chandler is coming into this fight off a 5 round pay-per-view co-main, where I have to be honest, I don't think he looked all that good for 4 of the 5 rounds against Charles.
No. He's also cheating a lot too in that fight. He like grabbed the fence like 1,000 times, hit Charles in the back of the head 1,000 times. Um, he did something else too. I just watched last night. I watched the compilation. It was like a 5 minute compilation of every Michael Chandler attempted cheat or successful cheat in the UFC. Wow, did not know it was like wall to wall 5 minutes. I thought it'd be like, oh, this is like 10, like gonna be like 10 things, but each one's like like 30 seconds, right? No, it was like wall to wall. It's like, dang, for a dude that talks in motivational speeches, it's kind of dirty. Yeah, I think this matchmaking is awesome because I think they're like, all right, I think we squeezed as much juice as we can out of this Michael Chandler thing. Let's use him to bump Caddy up. Like, and I think it's going to backfire horribly.
I was I was actually
I
I was
I'm
actually
hoping.
talking to someone about this online, and because obviously we have like a recurring series on the channel about like the MMA years. So we
Mhm.
talk about a fighter's period in a certain promotion, whether it was a success or a failure. Where do you personally stand on Chandler? Because on the one hand, you could say that he got himself some really big paydays. He was always treated like a big deal, fought for the belt. But you look at the numbers, like it's Dan Hooker and a well past his prime Tony Ferguson, and that's it.
2-4, 2-4 in 6 fights, and he didn't fight for practically 2 years, or over 2 years actually. Looking at the dates, over 2 years barely, waiting for the Connor payday, which he could have clobbered him, but you never know. If Connor happened to turn back the clock, like catching old chin up in the air Chandler.
Do you think that
Um,
fight did? Do you think that
I
fight
think
didn't happen because Connor wasn't interested in it, or do you think there was legitimate sort of behind the scenes reasons, all the scandals that took Connor away from that fight? Do you think that was ever a realistic? It is definitely going to happen, or do you think Connor was just sort of leading him
no,
on a
I
bit?
it's like John Jones fighting. I don't believe Connor or John Jones fighting until that cage door closes.
Because I remember an
Like,
interview when I think it would have been like early end of 2024, and one of the interviewers saying to Connor, "So who are you fighting next?" And he sort of goes, "Chandler." I don't think he ever wanted it.
no, I don't think he was going to fight Chandler ever. I don't think he wanted it. I don't think it was a matter of like, oh, he doesn't interest me. I, I'm sure in terms of the business, it interested him. I just don't think he. I don't think he's ever fighting again. I said that for a while, and most recently with like his whole political thing, you know. So I don't think he's ever fighting again. And I don't think he should. I'm not a Connor fan. I don't tend to like the man they portray. I don't know him personally, so I could be getting played. I could be being like, man, I hate that heel on wrestling. You know, it could be a situation like that. You know, where I'm just getting played. I'm a mark, but um, you know, that said, I think for his health, he probably shouldn't fight because like he's just I think he's just gonna get smacked up. He's obviously not training, and the closest thing to a real fight he's had was, you know, him uh, fighting my attention, trying to leave the room whenever I was watching him in Roadhouse remake. Um, oof, oof, not a good movie. Funny, like the more I think about it, it's a very unintentionally very funny movie. And I like Jake Gyllenhaal. It sucks. Um, but yeah, I think the Chandler. I don't think he wanted to fight Chandler. I think Chandler was like, yeah, I get to fight Connor. I'm going to train harder than I've ever trained before. And Connor, I think Connor was like, hey, can we like half ass this and like, you know, and just make money? Like Cowboy was like a perfect opponent for Connor. This Cowboy was already like way past it on like a big skid. You know, he just got kind of he just got whooped on by like Tony, and then Gaethje kind of put that nail in that coffin like right before, and then that's a good opponent for Connor because that guy doesn't stylistically poses no threats to Connor and clearly is a notoriously slow starter as well. So Connor just gets to feast for free. Chandler's a little different. Like I think in their primes, I'm picking Connor to win that based on the stylistic matchup. But unless Chandler just says no, I'm wrestling. It's like, oh, okay. Well, then if you're wrestling him, then you're going to beat him. But um, I don't think that fight was ever going to happen.
This is the fight that is happening though, which is Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. We'll start with Chandler first and foremost here, a 23-9 record. Now, outside of the 2 UFC wins that we mentioned, there's 2 wins over Benson Henderson, Brent Primus, Goti Yamauchi, and also Eddie Alvarez, Bellator 58, which is pretty much the fight that put him on the map. And I will say though that I actually rewatched that fight because I'm actually going to be doing a retrospective looking at like the Bjorn Rebney era. And the style of fight that Michael Chandler used to beat Eddie Alvarez, it hasn't changed all that much to what we see today. Still very explosive to start off with, big right hands, he can mix in the wrestling, puts almost to his detriment, is too aggressive for his own good and puts himself in trouble. Like he's just pretty much been that same guy since 2011.
He's like a team out. He's like if someone mixed a wrecking ball with Team Alpha Male. It's kind of
which is appropriate because I always compared him to Chad Mendes.
Yeah, he's Chad Mendes, who, by the way, also one of the better fighters to never win a strap ever. He just happened to fight in the same era as the greatest ever. And like his prime was lined up with the greatest ever. Like it's just kind of that's what it is. Chandler to me always kind of felt like a better version of Chad Mendes for me, but it's funny. I think Chad Mendes has had the better career in the UFC, of course, and obviously career Bellator, like Bellator champion multiple times. 3-time, is it?
I think it's 3 times because he beat Chandler.
Yeah.
He beat Eddie, and then I think he lost the belt to, I think it was Will Brooks, wasn't it?
It was Will Brooks. No, he lost to Eddie again. Because remember,
oh yes, he did, yeah.
Because they're 1-1, but then Will Brooks beat him. But I think he got the belt back after Eddie left, and then Will Brooks beat him.
And then the 3rd time was when Primus got that really strange sort of leg kick TKO, and then he won the rematch.
Yeah. He calf kicked him, I think. It was like one of the first calf kicks. Yeah, because he dominated the rematch. If I remember right. Yeah, so 3-time Bellator champion. I mean, heck of a career. And you asked about a grade for his UFC run. B-, because the success in terms of the win-loss column isn't there, but he was treated like a big deal. He made a lot of money. And my God, he only has one bad fight in his UFC career, I think. And that's the Tony fight for personal reasons.
But even that first round, like that was like Tony's last great moment. Amazing.
Yeah, we had old Tony back for 5 minutes. It was great.
Are we going to be getting old Michael Chandler back against Paddy Pimblett though? Because we're going to have to talk about the baddie here. So 22-3 record. Coming off, I have to be honest, because I did not expect Paddy Pimblett to win this fight, but submitting Bobby Green in the first round, hats off to him. It was very impressively done. And along with that, also he unfortunately beat the ghost of Tony Ferguson. Also Jared Gordon is in there. Jordan Levitt, which I don't think that's a... Yeah, it's a well-aged win because I actually have a lot of time for Jordan Levitt, especially when it comes to the grappling.
Me too.
And Paddy getting through that, I think is something that I give him a lot of credit for.
He beat him in the grappling too.
And surprisingly as well...
I remember him beating Jared Gordon then.
What's that?
He beat Jordan Gordon? Or Jared Gordon?
Well, according to the record books, in the same way that John Jones beat Dominic Reyes.
True.
What I did find very surprising though, when you look back at Paddy Pimblett's career, is the big question mark that's always come regarding Paddy is striking defense. Yet the guy has never been finished, never been KO'd in his UFC career, in his MMA career, I should say.
Yeah.
Guy's got a chin on him.
He says Scousers can't get knocked out. But I mean, Juicy J's a good hitter. He beat Juicy J. trying to think of like any like real hitters he's fought. Juicy J's like he's not a crazy hitter, but he can hit. I mean, he gets hit a lot. Like with the same
Hmm.
shot too. That's what that's what irks me about his striking defense. And if I was a Paddy fan, what I would be afraid of is guys with good left hooks. Because gotta be honest, if Jared Gordon did not have pillows for fists, he is knocking Paddy senseless in that fight. Like, because how many like clean left hooks to the chin did he
About a
land?
good seven
You
or
know,
eight.
and it's like that doesn't sound like a lot, but like when you really think about it, it's like that's a lot, you know. Whereas like in a fight where you only need one to do something, seven or eight's like 7 or 8 times the amount. It's a lot. Um, Tony was a hitter, but not like he was more punches and bunches, but had good oomph. Even if he didn't have like he hit hard, but not didn't have one punch. But that was also like you said, the ghost of Tony Ferguson, the the ghost of lightweights past. Oh, I hope GFL fails before that happens. Um, soft random off topic. Hope GFL fails. I don't want to see Tony fight Dylan Dennis. But I I mean, in fairness, I didn't give him a prayer to beat King Green. Made me look stupid.
Because I thought Bobby had the fundamentals to just piece him apart on the feet.
Mm. And it was a kicks. Yep. That's infamously that's also the card where Dana said like, yeah, I'm never gonna pay fighters more because it doesn't make better fights. And you were like, well, hey man, you ran this fight at 9 p.m. Central Time when they're in
5 o'clock
GMT.
in the morning for the main event.
And he goes, that doesn't matter. It's on midnight and it's 1 a or it's 11 o'clock and it ended at 11 o'clock in Vegas. Who cares? I at that moment in time I realized is Dana stupid? He's an idiot.
Obnoxious. That's the way I'd look at it.
Yeah. Nah, I think it's kind of funny calling a grown man who is infinitely more successful than me in life. I think it's fun calling him stupid. It's a weird like power move on my part if I'm being honest. Um,
One of the things you
that
mentioned,
said, I'm more respectable
yeah,
than Dana White.
you mentioned about Paddy's weaknesses when it comes to left hooks. It's a good thing you brought that up because Michael Chandler has a hell of a good left hook. I don't think it's as strong as his right. Because if you look at a lot of Michael Chandler fights, a lot of his offense is based around trying to either get people with the right or use the right as a means to setting up his other weapons. Because I think about what happened with Dan Hooker. Because if you go back and you watch Dan Hooker fight, Hooker is circling away from Chandler's right throughout that pretty much that entire fight because he doesn't want that big overhand coming and catching him. Chandler realizes this, so what does he do? As he's circling to the right, there goes the left. That's how Hooker goes down, and the rest is history. I could maybe see Chandler trying to do something similar to Paddy in the first round.
I agree. I also think if Patty is a very aggressive fighter, and he'll step in with his chin up in the air, and I think I could see Chandler. I think Chandler's reaction to the counter, like oh he's stepping in, I got to counter him, is going to be right hand, which will graze, maybe not land clean, and then left hook after. I'm hoping at least that he kind of thinks about countering with a 2 punch combination instead of just a big bomb. I think that'll do him some good personally. Like if he goes right left on the counter, preferably just left, but no. Um, I have to take into consideration not what I want, but what the fighter is most likely to do. I one thing too is like Chandler, I I he will go to the body sometimes, and it's with the straight right hand. And I always think about this with guys have amazing chins. When guys have amazing chins, like everyone goes, oh, they could take a good shot. Let's hit him in the body. You know, I'm obviously as a fan of El Wapo himself. I do love me a good body attack, and that's what I was impressed with against the Dan Hooker fight because he was doing what kind of similar to what Matt Serra did against GSP, which is Matt Serra's throwing shots to the body over and over to make the hands lower a little bit. So he was doing it uh, to Dan Hooker's body to kind of bring down like Hooker's hands a little bit because he's like, oh, he's changing levels when he does it. What if he shoots a takedown? He wants to. What if he wants to wrestle me? And then here comes left hook, you know, that just clobbers him. Um, that said, it's funny how that win was not aging very well, and then it aged incredibly well recently. Because funny enough, Dan Hooker's probably higher ranked among fans in terms of meritocracy right now than Michael Chandler is.
We've been focusing a lot on the stand up and what could happen there, and most of us expect Michael Chandler to have the upper hand on Paddy when it comes to striking. Of course, Paddy's not going to try and keep the standing up. He's going to try and go for the takedowns, utilize his jiu-jitsu. Do you think he's going to have success, A, getting the fight to the mat, and B, doing anything with Chandler? Because we have seen in a couple of Michael Chandler's fights, especially against Dustin Poirier recently, that there are vulnerabilities. He can be subbed. He struggled mightily against Charles Oliveira. Do you think there's an avenue for Paddy to maybe get this sub if Chandler can't get it done?
I would like to think that that Chandler would be able to stop the wrestling attack from Paddy. That said, I also thought he would against Charles, and Charles would just beat him because he's a better fighter on the feet. And like I thought the only thing he has over Charles is power, of course, because he kind of has that over almost anybody not named Gaethje at lightweight. But Gaethje and maybe Topuria at lightweight are like the only guys I'd go, yeah, probably the only guys more powerful than him. Um, oh, John Silva. Oh no, he's featherweight. Never mind. But um, what's it called? Pat, I could see I could see Paddy getting him to the mat, and if he does, he's probably going to have a lot of success. I think something I just thought about too is Paddy's been kicking a lot lately. Paddy's been kicking, and I mean, would you like? I always wondered. We talked about him earlier in the show, Damian Maya. Like I was always shocked Damian Maya was coming out there going wild on the kicks because he isn't afraid of getting taken down. But,
You reminded me of K1 Maya. There was like a time when Damian Maya made like a real attempt to try and
oh yeah,
up his striking.
you know who he was training with before you
It
went to
was.
Cordero, Vanderlei, and I will never forget my uncle Tony, laughing at the idea of going out with Vanderlei or training with Vanderlei. He goes, "He's only going to learn two techniques, Joseph. That's stupid."
I seem to
He didn't knock down Dan Miller
I
though,
seem to remember
and Gunnar
I
Nelson.
seem to remember him piecing up Colby when they fought.
Yeah, a little bit. He busted him up on the feet a little bit. It's weird that Damian Maya. I thought about this the other day. Damian Maya is the best grappler to like fight consistently in MMA, probably in terms of accolades. And wrestlers used to smoke him. Like, isn't that kind of
Yeah.
weird to think? Like Usman, Covington, um, Woodley, but not the same way. It's kind of like with RDA. RDA, everyone thinks about like as the striker. I always think of him as the grappler, like first and foremost. He's a grappler that just got really good at striking. Cordero trained too, similar camp. Um, but like RDA hates fighting wrestlers. Wrestlers heats him up, like historically. Um, I think Paddy can kind of kick his. I think Paddy can kick though into keeping the hands high or attack the legs enough that it makes shots easier. If he's kicking high, it can make the hands go up, which allows him to change levels. Um, I think if like it's in the clinch, I don't know if Paddy can be able to get Chandler down, and I think Chandler wouldn't have a problem taking Paddy down either.
I
To
think
be
Chandler's
honest,
the type to,
so,
if Paddy is going very kick heavy, I can see Chandler being the type to catch the kick and follow him to the mat. And that could be interesting to see
yeah,
because I think Paddy
I think so
could
too.
do some work off his back and maybe catch Chandler.
Mm. Over or under 5 shots to the back of the head if Chandler if
I'm
Chandler
going
gets on
over,
top of
definitely
Paddy.
over.
Oh yeah, he's gonna get like 20 in
Speaking
there.
of over and unders, I'm going to say this when it comes to my prediction. And this is quite bold. I'm going to go out on a limb with this.
Mhm.
I think you go what under 1.5 rounds, Chandler wins. Anything after that, I'm going Paddy.
Okay, okay, I respect that. I think this fight is closer than people want to think it is, and I hate that because I'm not a Paddy
But that's a
fan.
sign of the good matchmaking.
But
Because prime
agreed.
for prime,
Yeah.
Chandler's winning this fight comfortably.
Oh, this is Paddy's prime. This is his ceiling. Is fighting is beating a potentially washed Chandler. I think. Um, sounds mean when I say it that way. Ugh. But it just is what it is. You know. Um, if I liked the guy, if I was a fan of Paddy, I'd be right. I would hopefully say the same thing. Hope my bias wouldn't cloud me. Um, I'm picking Chandler to win by late second round finish. I think he TKOs him. I think he just. I'm banking on power here, but I do have a very quick and funny story that I was going to say during Pitbull, but it involved Michael Chandler, so I can do it really quick so we can get to the main event. Um, so there was obviously Chandler has had accusations of PEDs throughout his career, and he said, "I've never popped hot. Like that's ridiculous. That's stupid." You know. And Patricio Pitbull uh, in was he was to quote Mike Goldberg was Cody Garbrandt esque in this, and he goes, how the hell is he going to say that he's never popped hot? They don't even test us here in Bellator, so he couldn't pop hot, and everyone had like the Naked Gun, like no like that. It's amazing. One of my favorite airheaded Pitbull moments, or airheaded fighter moments, really in general. I think that's like the only one I can think of with Pitbull, but uh, super funny. Michael Chandler, by the way, is unintentionally one of the funniest guys in MMA because he's kind of cringy. Whenever he got to the UFC, he was speaking primarily in motivational quotes, and there is a meme from when they announced. It was a YouTube comment I saw when they announced Chandler versus Gaethje, and it was after the controversy of Ortega. Like, hey, how many fingers am I holding up, Ortega? I don't know. Let me fight, please. Like with Herb Dean. Herb Dean goes to Michael Chandler and is like, how many fingers am I holding up? Two. Two fingers that can pull itself up by its bootstraps and fought hard to come back and show the world what it truly means to be a fighter and be a man in the society and be an inspirational figure for everybody. And like this long speech of like how those two fingers are going to be the goalposts that he kicks field goal through to victory. And it just ends with like Irving going, "It was one finger, you're out."
I'm reminded of that time when it was during the Primus fight when he has the leg injury and he gets up from the stool to sort of like gee the crowd up. Come on, let me fight. Come on, look, they all want it. While he's doing that, the stool's being pulled away from him, and as he goes to sit back down, boom.
Forgot about that. That's funnier than when Jimmy Crew was like, "Yeah, let's go," and tries to walk back. Oh, leg came out again. Oh.
So now we move on to the main event, and we are staying for the third time in 5 fights. It is in the featherweight division, and it's Alexander Volkanovski who will be looking to try and regain his throne, but to do so, he needs to take on the juggernaut that is Diego Lopes. So, Joe, there are two big sort of intangibles we need to talk about before we get into the fight itself. The first is the decision that we found out back in February when Ilia Topuria decided to vacate the featherweight title to commit his future to fighting at lightweight. And the other big question as well is, have the UFC made the right call on these two fighting for the vacant belt, bearing in mind that you've got a Movsar Evloev-shaped cloud hanging over it?
So I'm going to be honest. I personally feel as though um, Diego Lopes, in terms of meritocracy, is he probably deserves this more than Evloev, because it's not just who you beat, it's how you beat him. And this guy has lost one round to a gutsy Dan Ige. But and he is just smashed on everybody. And he was dominating Dan Ige in that fight. I think Lopez has to be here, and I understand why Volk is here. I think I would have rather it have been Evloev.
I know why the UFC have gone the way they have, because in terms of popularity, in terms of entertainment, it does make sense to book these two. I understand that business side of things, but we seem to talk about this so many times where we're seeing meritocracy being shunned more and more when it comes to the UFC, and I think Evloev is another example of that. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't necessarily enjoy Evloev's style. Like, that being said, I thought him versus Aljo was great entertainment, great scrambling heavy fight, which I will always defend that match to the hill. But when you've got Evloev as well, who holds a win over Diego Lopes, and the guy who lost is getting the belt before the guy who won, that just doesn't make sense logically.
It's one of those situations I feel like where, without context, this is a huge crime to Evloev. With context, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So with context, I get it. Because Diego Lopes came in on a week notice, right? And he made it he almost dropped another bomb. He made it a fight. Like he almost tapped him a couple times. And Voyev, I didn't care too much for the Aljo fight. It was fine. I didn't like it at all the first time I watched it. Now I'm like, it's actually not that bad. But that fight, I mean, I think his Arnold Allen fight's pretty good too, actually, because of Arnold Allen. But that Lopez fight's really good. That fight, I watched it this week in prepping for this. I was like, man, you know what? This guy's pretty solid. Lopez makes it real interesting. So I love the idea of a rematch between these two. I think those two guys are the clear 1 and 2 guys in the division. Now that Topuria is gone, of course. But the only thing I could think of is Punk is kind of making a smaller comeback amongst women, and with Diego Lopez's haircut,
that is a fantastic haircut. You say Punk though, I think more flock of seagulls.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I think Pop Punk, my ex loves them and I do too. Blink 182, very Blink 182-esque for me. AKA Diego Lopez, do it. Do the funniest thing you could do. Listen, we have what's his name? Was a super hot prospect and lost to Neil Magny. Mike Malott. Mike Malott comes out to, I don't want to waste my time. Diego Lopez come out to any Blink 182 song. He can come out to Damn It. I see you at a movie sneak preview. Show up and walk by. I'm the arm of that guy. Yes, I know. If anyone wants to, wants a karaoke session with Joe, I'll do it on Patreon. But Diego Lopez could walk out to all the small things through care. Um, I do think, like, all jokes aside, though, it's definitely it should be Lopez and Avoyev, I think, here, because I want mostly because I want that rematch, though. Like, I legitimately, really, really do want that rematch. Um, I think that fight sounds sick. I think there's a couple of really fun fights. Um, like a couple of like really fun fights with like Diego Lopez you could do. Admittingly, Patricio and Diego Lopez sounds really fun if Patricio wins, but I don't know. I think out of context, Avoyev is getting just just getting Ankalaev. There's no word for it, really. In context, though, like with all that context, no, I totally understand. Like, I'm actually okay with this matchmaking. With at least with Lopez being over Avoya, I'm okay with like if it's like we were always going to do Volkanovski, but just a matter of who's going to be blue side of the ring. And if it was like we had a choice between Lopez or Avoya, I think with context, Lopez over Avoya makes perfect sense to me.
I think Volkanovski was always going to be part of the fight. I have to be honest with that
Yeah.
because um,
Well, it was originally going to be a rematch, is what they were thinking,
I
right?
believe so. Yes.
Which I don't like.
Yeah, because I do. I dislike it in terms of I think that I don't think there'll be any change in the result because I think Topuria is that far ahead of Volk in 2024 that I don't see the result being any different. It's kind of similar to sort of like O'Malley versus Marab. I would be approve
Yeah.
of it. I would approve of it though only in the context of Volk being a dominant champion, and I think earning the opportunity to try and get the belt back. Because I think if you do hold the belt for that kind of length, you kind of the company owes it to you.
Hmm. Agreed. I feel like, I mean, that Volkanovski has an argument to be the greatest featherweight ever. I wholeheartedly disagree with it personally, but he has a very, very, very good
It's the
argument
most
for it.
competitive sort of who is the greatest division in my opinion, because there is a big
Ever. Yeah.
justification for Aldo, there's a big justification for Max, and there's a big justification for Volk.
Mm. It's really close. Like, I think, I think if they're racing, it's got a very much a Lightning McQueen level end where Aldo's sticking his tongue out at the last second.
Who's
Uh,
Chick Hicks and who's the king
but
then?
I think Volkanovski could be a pretty good chick Hicks. Um, and
Aldo
it's
has to be the
funny as a
king.
kid. Uh, yeah, he's got to be the king. Oh well, yeah, because he was Aldo was 'cause that's um who
Richard
played the
Petty.
king? Richard Petty played it? Oh no, I'm thinking of Paul Newman.
No, he was Doc.
Doc. Yeah, the original like race car. That's Aldo. Actually, admittingly, that would probably be the littlest Noguera. Um, what was his name? The one that Aldo destroyed in WEC. But I've only seen Cars one. I apologize.
We are disturbing so many people with our
All the
Pixar
boom.
knowledge.
Yeah, I love. They're better than Disney all time. Hot take, but um, Toy Story 1, 2, 3, Incredibles 1 and 2, Monsters Inc. Cars is fine.
Let us try and get this
Um,
back on tangents because that's
yeah.
why we got Uncaged. Uncaged is where we could talk about all these Pixar films and this kind of stuff. Let's focus on this main event here, and we're going to focus on Alexander Volkanovski, who returns for the first time since February 2024, where he lost that fight to Topuria at UFC 298. And I have to say as well, I don't know where you personally stand on this, Joe, because I've seen two schools of thought. I actually approve of Volkanovski taking this time away from the sport because he fought three times in 2023, two of those being against Islam Makhachev, both of those fights not going his way, and then, of course, has the knockout loss to Ilia as well. I think he had too many fights. I think it started to impact on his chin. He wasn't 100%. Even though it has added an extra year onto his career, and he's now 36, I think refreshing himself and give him a chance to sort of recharge his batteries, I don't think we're going to get prime Volk, but we're going to get a much better Volk than what we did in his past 2 fights.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think when you lose, I think when you get knocked out especially, or at least beat up especially, I think it's very important to rest your body. Like, because you're resting not just your body, but more importantly, you're resting your brain, which is the thing we need to do anything, especially in fighting. I think one of the things that caused the downfall of Tony Ferguson was not doing that, because he still shake my head at this. He cut weight twice when fighting Justin Gaethje. Stupid, not a play, regardless. And then it got beat up very, very, very badly in that fight. First 2 rounds were very competitive. 3, 4, and what happened in 5, the little 5 we had, was smashing. And then he comes back in December of that year, to fight Charles Oliveira, and he just wasn't there, right? Like he needed like a year and a half off, probably, to recover from double weight cut into smashing, right? Like, and I think Volkanovski was smart in doing this. I think I don't know if he was necessarily smart in saving the card against Makhachev, because I thought he at the time was a guy who could beat Makhachev, because I think he at least got as close as you can get in the first fight. That was one of my favorite fights, actually, honestly. That's the best super fight I think UFC's had, at the top of my head, in terms of quality of the fight.
And I think it was a very short-sighted move by the UFC as well, because there was a lot of goodwill surrounding the first Makhachev-Volkanovski fight. If you did let Volk build up a few more defenses and then run that fight back, the anticipation would have been immense. And instead,
Could you imagine they did that for
instead
300?
we're running it back on 2 weeks' notice, and we didn't get an enjoyable fight because it was just so one-sided. Makhachev went in there first round, and you kind of ruined the good feeling of the first fight by rushing the rematch.
Yeah, I don't know, what's it called? Like, if they didn't run it back and he just got some defenses, he fights Topuria. Let's say he beats Topuria because he's not, coming off of a vicious knockout loss. He beats Topuria, let's say, and because he did have success against Topuria.
I think he won the first round.
He was doing well. I agree. Yeah, I think he won the first round. So like, you come in there, you're doing. He beats Topuria, and then let's say he fights Evloev and beats Evloev. Then you're in a position where, hey, UFC 300 is like right here. We could do the biggest rematch for one of the most hotly contested fights. And they did. I don't like that. I don't like that play from a business standpoint. I don't like it from a fan standpoint.
I don't think your dog does either.
But other dogs barking, so something's going, like someone's like in the backyard or something like that. That he's like, I want to bark because other dogs are barking. Situation. Yeah, I think I think it was kind of a bad idea doing that, for sure. Because I wasn't, because he got knocked out pretty hard. He fought, it was October to February, and I feel like that's still too quick of a comeback, even like with a KO head kick KO loss from Makhachev against Topuria.
So if Alexander Volkanovski is to regain his belt, what are the X's and O's? What's the traits that he's going to do to try and neutralize Lopes in terms of his style?
I think he's got to take him into the deep water. because Lopez feels like uh, a, against Brian Ortega, he didn't punch himself out like he did against Ige, but his Ige he kind of punched himself out a little bit on. He had a really rough third round because of it, and um, Volkanovski I think is who's incredibly smart. Like he's obviously not the biggest, he's not the strongest, he's not even the most. He's very technical, but he's not the most technical guy. I think, but Volkanovski's incredible. His fight IQ is through the roof. That's his stat. That's like maxed out for sure. If this were a video game, and I think he's going to see that. I think he's going to uh, try and frustrate Lopez as much as he can early. Maybe grind on him a little. I could see him trying to take Lopez down, or at least, admittingly, I could see him trying to clinch up and haul him home a little bit here and there, just to kind of take Lopez into the deep water, where that's the only question mark we have on him is from what we've seen in the UFC. That's the only thing we don't really know, like how good is his cardio. This is his only question. His striking has looked fantastic. His grappling has looked unbelievable. He has a ton of power. There's literally a meme of him knocking out Ortega and then waking him back up with the end of the combination, which is incredible. Um, it's kind of it. He's got a tough task ahead of him, but the cardio is the question. The cardio is the question, and I think Volkanovski's going to try and fight for an answer on that. If that's personally how I see him going about this.
And in the case of Diego Lopez, we've had this real sort of. I'm trying to think of the term to use here. It's kind of like he's a bit of an overnight sensation, as it were, because if you were to look at this guy, a 26-6 record, made his UFC debut, I think, 2022 was the first fight with Evloev? 2023, so even closer. So, like, in less than 2 years, he's gone from bit of a journeyman fighter, to be honest. Failed on the Contender Series. I think he lost to Joanderson Brito. Then he takes a fight with Evloev, and even in a losing effort, still does enough to sort of raise a bit of goodwill among fans. And now he's fighting for the belt. It's kind of like, we always get these stories about these sort of like fairy tale runs. You look like Leicester City, Nottingham Forest, where they get 1 or 2 wins and just the momentum and the self-belief starts. Diego Lopez is kind of that story in mixed martial arts.
Him and Rocky next to each other, Mike Goldberg, virtually identical.
Well, more in that, like, you've got, in my opinion, a good fighter, but because of that self-belief, they carry them on. So he's not necessarily an underdog. It's just, it's like in all sports. Like, you win one, you have the confidence to win more. Momentum
is huge, huge. And I think he's a very good fighter. I thought that was really clear from the Evloev fight, and then we've just kind of like we Gavin Tucker was like, hey, this is a fun fight for this guy who had a good showing against Evloev. This is a fun matchup for him. Quickly wins. Pat Sabatini, we said, hey, this fight's going to be pretty good. It's going to be close. Destroys him. Sadiq Youssef, you and me said, hey, this fight's going to be crazy.
That was the one where I woke up. That's when I realized there's something here.
Yeah. At that moment in time, when he knocked out Pat Sabatini, I remember going like, okay, so is he newcomer of the year? Like, jokingly, because it was like, wow, what a like crazy like run this guy's kind of starting. At least like it seems this guy's going to start a good run. And then he knocked out Youssef, and I went, oh no, this is not a fun run. This is I'm marching towards a title run. Like, it was because I thought, oh, this guy's going to be like kind of Drew Dober in his prime-esque, like really fun. Like, you're always happy to see him after the Sabatini win. Nah, like now it's like this guy on the Fighting Nerds. Like, what's going on? Very, very scary guy. And what's crazy is, as good as his hands have been looking, his grappling's probably better. But his momentum is just like you were saying. His momentum is just through the roof right now, and um, it does so much for the confidence game. And he's kind of getting there's a lot of times in sports where someone has the full belief, the full ability, and the full confidence, but feels like they don't get the time to shine. And then they finally get it and they make the most of it. It happens all the time in like other sports where a guy has been like a journeyman bench warmer or something like that in a sport. Then a star gets hurt. He comes in to take over the role and start
Kurt
for his
Warner.
team. And yeah, exactly. Like a guy like Kurt Warner, a guy's like like people forget Magic Johnson wasn't starting his first year. He only came in uh, and started in the starting lineup after Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, their franchise best player, got hurt and put on a great performance, which solidified him as a starter. Um, like a lot of situations like that, and this is kind of reminiscent of that to me. Like this is a guy who was always good. Now we're putting a spotlight on him, and now he's got momentum, and it's got to just lift you up. If a guy's 90 overall, this guy's probably cooking like 95, 96 overall right now. Like this, it'll do a lot for you, feeling good about yourself and feeling very confident. And you know what? Credit to this guy, hasn't turned into a douche. Like how many fighters do we see getting put in spots similar to this, where it's like, all right, time to start being a dick, and like, no, this guy's, you know, out there being fun and, nice, very, kind of almost shy. Um, my gosh, with his haircut, he reminds me of people I knew in high school who were nice, shy guys that listened to like My Chemical Romance.
You do
You know,
realize I am probably going to be playing like if Lopez wins, I always put like a song on like the post fight reaction. It
hmm
is probably going to be like MCR or Blink 182 or something like that if he wins.
So a recommendation is Fallout Boy. Their first big hit, their 20-year anniversary was this week. Yeah. So
What do you
and that song is
what
terrible.
do you say to the people like Diego Lopez does have some critiques. I actually saw somebody online and a
Yeah.
lot of people gave this guy a bit of backlash. They made the comment that they thought in the past decade Diego Lopez was the weakest featherweight title challenger. Do you agree with that one? What do you say to people who are maybe a bit skeptical about Lopez and the insinuation that I've seen a lot of people suggest that he's a bit of a one round fighter?
Weakest featherweight contender? Like, to quote the memes, my brother in Christ, Yair Rodriguez fought for the belt. Brian Ortega fought for
Short
the
notice
belt.
zombie,
So,
which is
yeah.
sad, but
Short notice. I'm glad he had it, but short notice and not the same. Zombie. Um, wow, like who else is like there's other guys that have like fought for the belt. The past
yeah, so
decade,
we're going from like
you
McGregor
know,
onwards.
McGregor onwards. Okay. So McGregor didn't defend against anything. Like Brian Ortega, ghost of himself, Frankie in 2019, sadly. I don't want to hurt saying, but Yair, obviously Ortega. Like in fairness though, at featherweight, we've kind of had just the same guys fight each other
And
like
they've all
over
been
and
good
over, right?
guys. They've all been
Like
good fighters.
yeah, yeah. Like Volkanovski fought Max twice. He fought Korean Zombie, Ortega, and Yair, right? Whereas Max Holloway fought Aldo Ortega at, you know, like, um, and then before that, it's like, I full disclosure, I love this guy. Very, very good and underrated guy in the grand scheme of history of the sport. Ricardo Lamas is probably the weakest in UFC history for featherweight. Um, Maybe the first Chad Mendez. Actually, I'm gonna go with the original Chad Mendez that fought, the one who got kneed in the face, not the one who So when not Dwayne Ludwig era, alpha male. Back when TJ Dillashaw was not 100% a punk, you know. Um, yeah, no, I mean like I everyone who's fought for a title at featherweight's been kind of awesome, you know. Like I'm if I have to like it's like probably Ortega the second time around because I wasn't convinced. The first time I thought, ooh, this fight's gonna be close. I don't know who to pick him between him and Max. Second time I wasn't necessarily convinced that Volkanovski wasn't just gonna beat him winning. That's weird. There is things to critique about every fighter, and I think they're all only two fighters in history are without critique. I think you know what I mean. Um, and I think we all
Yeah.
know,
Raquel Pennington?
right? No, uh, right here, Boss Rutan without critique beat Kevin Randleman. In fact, I think he 10-8'd him every round. And Jose Aldo, yeah, never gave up his belt. He felt bad for Max in that little
I
Irish
think I'm
play.
going to be repeating myself a little bit because what I'm going to be saying is quite similar to my prediction with Chandler versus Pimblett, in that
Hmm.
I think there is a real danger on what Diego Lopes could do to Volk early in the fight. Bearing in mind, Lopes is a fast starter. Volkanovski, first time he's fighting in a long time. Is he older? Has the chin held up? But I think Volk is a professional. I think he's made the smart move, taking this time away. And I think he's going to survive the early onslaught from Diego. And the longer the fight goes, I think we could see Volk starting to have sustained pressure on Diego. And I think Diego's going to break from it. So I'm going to hedge my bet. I'm going to say Volk's going to win this one. I'm going to go 49-46. It's going to be a decision win. I think Volk still has enough to get past this.
If Volk does win, it's going to be a 48-47 win. But if this one hurts.
I
This
could
one
see a
really
scenario where
hurts.
Diego does win. I have to say that.
I think yeah. This fight is like who's the favorite? Is
I
Diego
think
favorite
Volk just, but I
by
think
odds
it's sort
maker?
of like minus 130, something like
Oh,
that.
so that's closer than that's about as close as I think it could be. I think it's very, very, very close fight, and I thought public perception was going to push Diego Lopes into being the favorite here. Personally, I'm gonna pick. I'm picking Diego Lopes to win in a similar vein as I'm picking Chandler to win in the early moments of the fight. First two, I think he's going to win within the first 2 rounds, and it hurts saying that. But I, I what's kind of funny is it feels like we almost planned this. Like you and me are picking the two most likely outcomes, or we both pick one of and then you pick the other most likely outcome. So neither one of us can look
Oh, and
wrong.
I have been wrong.
Overall,
I
the
have been
INC
wrong
wins.
many a time on this show. Don't worry about it.
Absolutely.
Um,
Oh, absolutely. You smoked me last year in the previous show. I think I lost by 10 fights. You had
and
10 over
I,
me when I
I
first
don't know
came on.
about you. I kind of get the impression. I think the UFC want Diego Lopes to win, and I say this because they
Absolutely.
already announced Noche UFC is going to be taking place in Mexico City, UFC 320, September. If you look at the
Mm.
Mexican fighters on the roster, there's not many guys on there who are of Mexican heritage who are locked on definitely going to be fighting for the belt. Because if
Mm.
Chev retains a belt against Manol Firo, you can't do Chev Grasso
They're not doing
4.
full.
Brandon Moreno get another shot against Pantoja. That's not really going to happen. But bearing in mind, Diego Lopes
Likely.
lives in Mexico, claims himself as sort of like semi-Mexican. Him defending the title
Mm.
in the main event in Noche UFC, I could see happening.
We've given him the pass. He's been Mexican as
Yeah.
far as we're concerned. When he cuts his hair, at least. Gotta cut your hair, buddy. No, it's funny. My brother has more hair like evened out, but it's a similar length in a way to his. It's like, but yeah, like Diego. It's so funny. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Diego Lopez, he's like one of the baddest Mexican fighters right now. It's like he's Brazilian. His name is not Diego Lopez. His name. Diego Lopez sounds like without the spelling because it would be with a Z in Spanish. But Diego Lopez sounds like a Mexican name. Diego is a very common name in Mexico, like Don Diego and stuff like that. And like Lopez, very common last name. But his name is technically Diego Lopez da Silva because like he just goes by Diego Lopez. Like that's fine. Like um and like who am I to judge? I added a middle name for myself like in middle school, like for fun, and I just kind of kept it. Like I often forget like that's technically not my legal name. um, but so I got no judgment here, but he's Brazilian, but we count him. I count him enough, you know. If they can accept a Chicano like me, then we can accept Diego
And on
Lopez.
that nice positive note, I think that's a really good place for us to start wrapping up the UFC 314 preview show. Joe, it's been a while since we've done one of these, but I have to say I have thoroughly enjoyed myself. Before we
There's
say
a
our
lot of
goodbyes, though, we do have a little bit of laundry, as it were, in regards to what's happening with the INC, what's happening with INC Live, including some of the stuff that's been happening with the retro reviews. So if you have been following the main channel, you'll know that we have a new face on our team. Mitchell McIntyre has come in to help you out with doing some of the extra backlog. So UFC 104 is already on there, which was our January card. We also had our February one, which was Strikeforce Fedor versus Dan Henderson. We'll also, over the next couple of weeks, be starting to put together March's retro review. And Joe, we are going to be... Good thing you brought up Pixar as well, because we've got a little bit of a Disney theme with March's retro review. A bit of a tale as old as time, as it were.
Absolutely. As we get to have the original battle of Beauty and the Beast as Cyborg and Gina Carano. Recently, funny enough, it's kind of fits because as of recently, ESPN got into some controversy as they left Gina Carano off their top 10 women's MMA pioneers list, which is horrifyingly bad. Gina Carano is in that top 10. Where? You know, but like she's in that top 10. There's no question. Like I don't like I'm guessing they put Ronda one,
Yes.
right? I'm guessing they put Misha on
Misha's on
there.
there. I think Coonan's on there as well. I think Roxy might have made a
Oh,
place in
good.
there. But also as well,
Really? No
ESPN,
offense.
owned by Disney. All the issues with Gina and Disney.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and that makes perfect sense why they left her off. Um, yeah, because like Amanda Nunes, yeah, she's got to be on there because it's just oh, it's like these 10 stars change women's MMA in the 21st century. So Gina needs to be on there absolutely. Nunes, Ronda, um, Wiley Zhang for what she's done for MMA in China is actually that's actually like we don't really see it, but from all accounts, it's huge. Um, Nunes, not Nunes, excuse me, Alexa Grasso, massive, massive what she's done for fans and across MMA in general. Shocked that he kept a straight face saying that. You know, and she's also representing, my people, so I gotta love it. Cyborg, of course, Marlos Kunin, and I've said Gina, said Ronda, Liz Carmouche. I'd be okay with the Liz Carmouche on there. Um,
So so that
Rose.
so that's going to
Um,
be yeah.
I'm I don't think I can think of any other names.
So that's March's retro review. The poll is also still up for April's. I mean, it will be about June or July when we get to them because we do have a bit of a backlog and we've got all the Patreon requests as well, which we need to prioritize. Yeah. But April's poll is online as we speak. It's probably looking one way on which card we're going to be covering. But Joe, if people still want to try and get their votes in, what could we be covering? And bearing in mind, of course, we're in Miami. There's a bit of a Miami connection with this one.
Oh yeah. So with April is that's the Kane month. Right?
No, that's going to be a long way. That's September.
No, it's not. That's September. Oh, gotta go even further back. June is Great White North. Or no, that's next month. Oh, that's right. I mean, I thought I had it ready, and I look at me not being prepared.
You could tell we're a slick operation.
Honestly, slick operate like we're smooth operators. Okay, so we had some pretty fun choices here. We went to cards in Miami, UFC 42 with the guy who no one was shocked when he popped hot for steroids, Sean Shirk taking on Matt Hughes in the main event. Then it was Ortiz Shamrock, the final chapter, the cringiest title in it. Honestly, everything about that whole thing I just said was the cringiest thing I've said on the show. Ortiz, cringe. Shamrock,
very cringe.
He did it on purpose. Incredibly so. I want to beat you into living death. It's amazing. The final chapter. Definitely you can tell what era it's from. That was on here. Fight Night Machida Romero, which I always forget was a Miami card. And then the winner, the clear choice, the one I've been wanting us to do forever, Strikeforce Miami. That card is so good. That's the best Strikeforce card ever. And I'm saying that as someone who had a Strikeforce, Daniel Cormier fought in Oklahoma City in Strikeforce. Like, yeah, it's the best one in Strikeforce Miami. It's not even close.
I think you've got that perfect mix of your sort of quality, high-level mixed martial arts for the hardcore fans. You've got Nick Diaz versus Zaromskis. You've got Cyborg versus Coonan. You've got Robbie versus Melvin Manhoff. And then you've got these kind of freak show fights that still deliver. You've got Herschel Walker making his UFC debut. Making his MMA debut. You've got Bobby Lashley.
That Phil Griggs fight?
No, that was a little bit later. It was Wes Sims.
Wes Sims. Yeah, it's Wes Sims. Which is, Bobby Lashley, who once said, I would have loved to have fought, bro. I think I could have done something.
So that is what you can look forward to at some point. We will be getting Mitchell on board, and he's looking forward to covering a lot of these cards. He's the same as you. He's really looking forward to doing Strikeforce Miami. We will be
Yeah, he's done a great job. I mean, he's helping us out because life's been like kind of not like right now. Like I don't mind being open and honest with it. It's just that's just the noon tornado test forms. It's everything's fine. But I got a new job and I've been working days, so my schedule's different, and it's kind of messed me up on when I would like to shoot and when I can shoot. Like is kind of like in limbo currently, and it's made things difficult. And life has just been busy. Like it's been a busy time of year for me, and either I'm sick or there's a storm or hey, like I got to help family or got to help friends out, and it's just like wearing on me. So I talked to Karl. Me and Karl, luckily aren't just, people who, I don't just work for Karl. Me and Karl are friends. So it was really easy to just be like, hey man, this is what's going on, dude. I think I've been fighting this for a while. I think I need to take a small step back for me to settle in, and then let's get back in.
It has been an absolute pleasure to be doing this once again, Joe. It's been a long time coming. We hope that everybody who's been watching has enjoyed it, and we'll be happy to do it again next month. And we are putting on our big fluffy coats, Joe, because we're heading to the Great White North. We are going back to Quebec, UFC 315, Bilal Muhammad, Jack Della Maddalena, Valentina Shevchenko, Manon Fiorot, 2 title fights. We are really looking forward to it. My name's been Karl Bainbridge, that's been Joe Neal, this has been the INC. Thank you so much for watching.